Chapter 98. A white fox walks out from the shadows. Its stomach rumbles with hunger. It hasn't found any prey for a few days now. The reason? He, who is covered in precious fur, has met with huge trouble recently. He and his tribesmen have met with the most dangerous enemy. Bang! I found my prey. All right, following the sound of a dwarf's gun, a certain white fox suddenly falls to the ground. A short figure walks out from behind a tree. His entire body is covered in weeds. He seems to be in high spirits, obviously excited about this rare prey. But what follows after is the earth-shattering sound of sirens and sirens. You have guts to actually dare to poach in Count Karlok's private estate. Last time, you killed the Count's beloved ass wolf dog. Today, you dare to hunt the Countess's favorite snow fox. You are courting death. All right. Following the angry roar are over 100 furious guards. Caught for poaching? That marksman? Originally, I intended to come to the Fire Dragon Circus alone today. But before I could even walk out of the door, I met the Draken who is getting ready to set off. Thank you for your care recently. I'm afraid that I will have to leave for a period of time. To be honest, hearing Beifeng's words of farewell, my mood was as though I had eaten 2 catties of apples in one go. I felt like starting a band in my heart. No matter how high I get, it just wouldn't end. You are leaving? That's great. Cough cough, what a pity. Being stared at by Keijio's resentful eyes, I had no choice but to change my words. Yuen, there is a grudge that I have to settle. Putting on his windproof cloak, the Draken intends to head out but Keijio stops him. Big brother, if you have an enemy, just tell me. I will help you. Aren't you treating me as an outsider by going alone? Aren't you treating me as a brother? Casey, it is precisely because I treat you as a brother that I want to drag you into this. This is my personal grudge. There's no need to say any more. I have already made up my mind. I am already clear about the grudge between HHA and that organization. Initially, I was biased towards HDA, but after interacting with you these few days, I realized the value of life. So, I chose that organization. She listened for a long time but did not understand, but the newspaper on the table seemed to be the culprit. The ace hunter of HHA, Happy Hunting Association, Lohman's Copper Hammer, will be performing his ultimate skill of shooting arrows at the Fire Dragon Circus. All hunters are welcome to come and watch the scenery and exchange hunting experiences. No, absolutely not. It's enough that there's only me in this world. If you join the Benevolence Association, you'll be laughed at by all the hunters. Are you mocking me? Haha, big brother, didn't you tell me before that as long as I walk on the path that I think is correct, ridicule and contempt are just decorations for the ignorant? Big brother, don't say any more. I'm going to join the Benevolence Association. I'll accept this grudge. Since you have this determination, I won't say anything else. Come, let's work hard together for a better tomorrow for cute little animals. Ignoring the increasingly gay scene in front of me, I soon realized what had happened. The Benevolence Association is the abbreviation of the Benevolent Druil Association for Animals. In most countries, they are an unwelcome rabid dog organization just like the Celestial Tower. As mentioned before, the occupation of Druil is innately connected to terrorists. The Benevolence Association is one of the most prominent among them. Their aim is even more radical than the Wild Bull alliances against clothes, advocating returning to the origin. What they advocate is that all animals should have the same rights as intelligent beings. It sounds beautiful, but thinking about it, when the chickens and ducks you eat have the same rights as you, in the eyes of the Benevolence Association, wouldn't the existence of eating meat be equivalent to murderers? All right, towards murderers, the Benevolence Association will tell you what is called the wrath of nature. Without a doubt, this is a scam. Can you imagine a certain citizen eating meat and drinking alcohol in public, only to be sentenced to death by the Benevolence Association? Thus, when a portion of their members injure others in public, causing huge trouble, the Benevolence Association becomes extremely unpopular. Of course, such extremists are the minority within the Benevolence Association. Most of the members of the Benevolence Association are still able to tolerate other people eating meat for the sake of survival. However, when it comes to hunting that exceeds the limits of food consumption, They are absolutely unable to tolerate it. Thus, the natural enemy of the Benevolence Association is the HHA, an organization that carries out hunting activities for fun. Most of its members are outstanding hunters and their goal is to challenge powerful or rare creatures. Due to the clash of ideologies between the two organizations, they have become mortal enemies in the long history of the HHA. At this point, I am completely shocked. It is one thing for a hunter like Beifeng to not join the HHA, but for him to actually join the Benevolence Association where most of its members are Druil. What is he trying to do? Not only did he join, he even affected Kageo, who is also an archer, to join as well. This is too ridiculous. Alright, end of reminiscing. Since our destination is the same, naturally, we are walking together. The moment we arrive, Beifeng is astonished to find out that his mortal enemy has been locked up in the royal prison for poaching. What is even more surprising is that he actually takes the initiative to ask for a way to save him. I have a grudge against that Lomans. My close lover died under his gun. We have already crossed hands 6 times, with 3 wins and 3 losses. Since we meet once again on the surface, perhaps, it is time for us to settle everything. Even if he is destined to be punished for his many evils, I should be the one to personally carry out this divine vengeance and end his sinful life. I won't comment on why your close lover died under the gun of a hunter, but looking at how moved you are, Kageo, I really don't know how I should comment on you. Draken, you should be the Beifeng. Heralt that Lomans mentioned before. This is the first time I have met a man who completely disregards me. You are not bad. Siren Tracy does have the qualifications to say such words. Sirens are the symbol of beauty in myths and legends. The romantic affairs between sirens, sailors, and heroes are the undying classics of the bar. The Tracy in front of me is tall and elegant. Her pretty face is filled with a charming aura. Her green scales and dim yellow pupils do not detract from her beauty in the slightest. On the contrary, it adds a hint of exotic charm to her. Her slightly strange vibrating voice has an indescribable allure to it. Sirens are creatures that possess a natural charm. Their singing is able to cause ships to lose their way and cause young sailors to jump into the sea. It is no wonder that she is able to become the most important pillar of the circus. Looking at Kageo's sneaking glances at her from time to time, the icy beauty Tracy is indeed full of charm. Furthermore, this young centaur has yet to walk too far down the wrong path in life. Lomans mentioned me before. What did he say? Are you sure you want me to say it here? There seems to be a child in front of us. The giggling Tracy was indescribably seductive. Kageo was unable to tear his eyes away from her cleavage, while Beifeng's gaze was still on the seal lady. If I were to allow Beifeng to continue pestering me endlessly, there would be no need for me to do anything. Thus, I directly took over the conversation and asked about serious matters. See God's blessing? I do have the ability, and I've even upgraded it before. I can turn 10 non-swimmers into swimming masters who can breathe underwater, but using this ability takes a lot out of me. Why should I help you? Alright, what followed was undoubtedly the time to haggle. Initially, I thought that as long as I spent some money to help the Fire Dragon Circus out of its predicament, it would be enough. However, I didn't expect that the siren's way of thinking is different from humans right from the start. She doesn't care about this circus at all. The reason why she is staying here is because of her promise to the previous leader and also because it is convenient for her to live in the human world with this identity. Unlike the mermaids who have a good reputation, the siren is famous for being fickle and cunning. The reason why she rejected the poaching of the other circus without hesitation is because the benefits that humans are willing to pay are nothing in her eyes and she finds it troublesome to change locations. At this moment, since someone has a request for her, it is impossible to get the siren to work for them without paying a price. 2 things. Help me deal with a person and help me save a person. If you agree, I will help you. The person who will save the person is that Lomans. Who is the person you want to deal with? Lomans is an old friend of mine. He was invited here to help me. It is indeed unjustifiable for me to send him to jail. A hateful person who doesn't know his place. He seems to be one of the nobles among you humans, a foolish weakling. This guest, the circus is currently closed. Please do not pester the members of the circus. Ah! Perhaps, our conversation attracted the attention of others. The leader of the Fire Dragon Circus, Milo, actually appeared. Initially, since we had already come to an agreement privately, it has nothing to do with the circus. However, considering that this circus can perform during the enthronement ceremony, I might be able to play some tricks on it. Thus, I decided to take over this circus. However, what surprised me was that there was someone who was one step ahead of me. Lord Knight, Lord Count Carlock has already invested in the circus. He will be coming here to inspect today. Count Carlock? For some reason, this name sounds familiar. Tracy whispers into my ear. The person I want to deal with is that person. He is annoying and annoying. As long as you save Lomans and stop that fellow from pestering me, the blessing of the sea god is just a small matter. I hesitated. Saving someone is just a convenience and it isn't a big deal. However, it isn't worth it to offend a count in the capital of the Ottoman Empire. Rather than going around in circles, it seems that it would be faster to suppress this siren directly. I would like to see who it is, to see who dares to snatch my woman. Just as I was about to reject him, an arrogant voice comes from outside the door. For some reason, I find this voice familiar. After a few seconds, a panting fatty walks in from outside the door. Who dares to snatch the woman I have my eyes on? Ah, I was wondering why this name sounds familiar. So, it is an old acquaintance. It is the Count with broken eggs. It is obviously Count with broken eggs. No matter what, he is still a Count. You must be polite. Count with half an egg, have you eaten? To think that you can flirt with women. The priest you found isn't bad. All right, ignoring the steel-faced Count who doesn't dare to flare up, I turn my gaze towards the astonished Tracy. We have agreed to the conditions. Let's postpone the matter of saving someone for now. We need your help first. I want to become a mage. In the end, I want to become the disciple of a true mage. If you are able to help me achieve this, I will give you the sword that my grandfather left behind. When I found Kane's granddaughter, I didn't know how to persuade this young lady who was born in a knight family who yearned for the path of a mage. Knight. My grandfather is a knight under the direct command of the royal family. Furthermore, he is a famous legend holy knight. In the end, what did he get? My old man put his life on the line for the royal family just to restore my grandfather's honor. In the end, he died on the battlefield. What did I get? Just the worn-out weapons and armor that my grandfather left behind. Kane's son, Slaysock Soria, in order to restore his father's honor, stepped onto the path of a knight. Back then, the royal family was impressed by the loyalty of the Soria family. Thus, they passed the weapons and armor that Kane used to Slaysock. However, before Slaysock could achieve his goal of restoring his father's honor, a new war broke out. In the end, what returned to the Soria family was only the armor and swords of the two knights. Do you want it or not? If it wasn't for the fact that you helped me pay for my school fees, I wouldn't even be discussing this deal with you. No matter how I look at it, it is an antique left behind by a legend. At the very least, I can sell it for a little more money. Recalling Kane's Valkyrie, I couldn't help but shake my head. I can understand Kathleen's thoughts. After all, the seniors who pursued the path of a knight didn't end up well. Even if they used to be a knight family, it is understandable for the younger generation to want to change their path. However, to the older generation, it is a little too cruel for the armor and weapons that are the symbol of a knight's honor to be sold off as an antique. Uncle, your equipment isn't too bad. You should have some connections. Introduce me to a mage. A silver rank mage would suffice. If it really isn't possible, a bronze rank mage would do as well. This request isn't too high. However, as the successor of the legend Holy Knight family, is there something wrong with her? Indeed, I can introduce her to a mage. The law incantation user who followed Kolos from the church is a gold rank mage. He would definitely satisfy her request. However, at this moment, compared to the swift sword who is a woman but is wholeheartedly trying to restore her family's honor, I don't really feel like introducing her. Give me your arm and relax. Kathleen does as I say, and the information that comes along with it makes me click my tongue in wonder. Kathleen Sawyer. Race, half-elf. Job, LV14 alchemist. Strength, 9, agility, 11, stamina, 8, intelligence, 14, will, 12, charm, 14. Racial talents, none. Everything else is normal. However, her identity as a half-elf speaks volumes. In the end, Slythok still managed to find an elf wife and a half-elf daughter. Even if he died in battle at a young age, he could still be considered a winner in life. Furthermore, half-elves are born with low strength and weak physique, so they aren't suitable for the path of a knight. Looking at the bun that intentionally covers her ears, recalling the laws of the nobles in this country, I more or less understand what is going on. Half-elf, if I can help you resolve your natural weakness, are you willing to become a knight? After saying that, Kathleen immediately covers her ears and takes 2 steps back in shock. She was initially confident in her disguise, but she didn't expect that she would be exposed the moment they met. Cough, don't worry. I know that if your identity as a half-elf were to be exposed, you would lose your title in the human kingdom. I am definitely not threatening you. Think about it. If you are willing to sign a contract with me to become a sorceress. Oh, if you are willing to become a knight, look for me. I will introduce you to a decent knight teacher. At the very least, your future won't be an insult to the glorious name of the Sawyer family. Of course, if you still insist on the path of a mage in the end, I will also introduce you to a gold rank mage. However, that would be purely a transaction. Don't count on it for the subsequent 3 packs. Chapter 99. In the pitch-black night, a black shadow is running. Sometimes, he crawls on the walls using ropes, sometimes, he leaps on the roof beams, and sometimes, he passes through the pitch-black waterways. When the citizens look towards the source of the sound, they can only see the flapping of the black cape. The sentries that are stationed every 10 steps are meaningless to him. The fatal taps and spikes make him laugh. The patrolling guards are just decorations in his eyes. The high-bred hunting dogs with steel braces. Yep, this has indeed attracted his attention. The tall and straight curves almost make him forget about his mission. Yep, he is the justice of the night, the nemesis of evil, the undying hero Batman. Cough, I almost made a cameo. Yep, that's right, he is the legendary beast hero Bayfong. Herald. At this moment, when Bayfong nears the inner layer of the prison, he immediately puts on the saw cloak and transforms into a mouse. Then, he swaggers into the prison. The security of the Ottoman royal prison is tight. On the sturdy walls, the Eye of Truth is patrolling. Illusions and stealth are unable to hide from it. On top of the towering mage tower, there is no lack of guards who take turns to watch the situation. However, as a legendary item, the transformation of the saw cloak is a complete transformation of the physical body. The user's cell structure is completely transformed into a mouse. This isn't something that can be detected by a detection spell that hasn't even reached the 6th circle. To find out the difference between him and a real mouse, the only way is to check his soul. As expected, there is no reaction at all even after a few consecutive spiritual lights sweep past. However, the guardian animals that the prison has reared have noticed this intruder. Aha, look at my mouse karate. You newbies can't even compare to my 4 tortoise students. You actually dare to challenge me, you are courting death. After transforming, the Beastmaster Hunter's natural aura of intimacy with animals is ineffective. However, facing a strong enemy, the mouse actually stands up and performs a set of magnificent techniques. After a series of punches and kicks, the attacking cats and hunting dogs are all knocked unconscious. That pitiful falcon has even lost more than half of its feathers, like a featherless chicken. In the end, it can only run away with its tail between its legs. However, what is surprising is that none of the animals are injured at all. He moves forward, countering every move that comes his way. The dangerous prison is like a flat land outside, unable to stop his footsteps. Very quickly, he found his target. That Da Vinci, when he heard us singing, his face turned red in anger. What, not Da Vinci? Oh, come to think of it, his name was Darwin. Not really. H, who cares what his name is? In any case, he is just a foolish ruler who is jealous of the virtuous. That's right, let us toast to this foolish ruler's generosity. Cheers to the foolish king's generosity. I remember he was called Uncle Darwin. Cheers. Who cares what his name is? We've already scolded him so much, but he still sends us good food and drinks. Is he born to like being scolded? Ha, well said. Cheers to Darwin who likes to be scolded. Dasos was kind enough to increase the treatment of these political prisoners, but it seemed that they did not appreciate it. They enjoyed the good wine and meat, and scolded those who should be scolded. The glasses clashed, and beer foam with a strong aroma of alcohol splattered on the ground, causing the prisoners in the surrounding cages to sigh and drool in pity. However, no one dared to say anything. When they first entered, the prisoners intended to use this opportunity to threaten these dwarfs to hand over their rations. However, after a friendly exchange, they knew that these dwarfs were not to be trifled with. However, the sudden appearance of a black mouse caused the bustling scene to pause for a moment. Then, the three of them drank their wine in silence and lay down to sleep. But in Hoyle's ears, the secret meeting was still going on. Has the date been confirmed? The day of that foolish emperor's coronation? Indeed, most of the combat forces should be on guard during the coronation ceremony. We can indeed cause a huge ruckus. This is our Roland number 88's control device. Ha, with this, we can directly tear down the walls and escape. Escape point. How thoughtful of the arrangements. Lomans. Oh, that grey-haired shield dwarf. I got it, we will bring him out. The password is Autobots, transform and set off. How incomprehensible. However, we got it. As long as we hear this password, we will cause a huge ruckus. Hehe, this time, we must let that foolish emperor know that even an old dog has two teeth. Dwarfs may be short, but if he really angers us, we can still jump up and smash his knees. Pale Justice attack power, 20 to 25, grade, epic, high, two-handed sword, user requirement, strength 12+, Holy Knight job ultimate holy flame, deals 30 points of silver flame damage to chaos creatures, 5 points of silver flame damage to normal life forms, perfect courage, immune to fear type, death-type magic, and innate abilities. The user will always be in a state of high fighting spirit. This effect can be shared with 3 party members. Advanced protection from evil, reduces the damage dealt by chaos creatures by 10 points. Judgment of justice, activates the power of judgment bestowed by the soul gem. After the holy sword hits a chaos creature, it will be judged. If the other party doesn't pass the judgment, it will be completely destroyed. Duration, 10 minutes. Usage, 3 times per day. The silver holy sword in front of me radiates a thin silver light, but it carries the holy light of order. After regaining its original body, this holy sword has truly returned to its original form. Although this holy sword is still unable to reach legendary tier, as long as it is used against undead, demons, and other chaos creatures, it is basically a god equipment. Of course, if the opponent is a normal human, then it might as well be an excellent tier weapon. What I can foresee is that there will be no lack of undead and demons among my opponents, so I am extremely satisfied with it. But, it is a pity that the enemies I am facing now don't belong to that category. Damn it! Why are there fishmen in the river? And sea beast? Diving alone, I intended to dive into the underwater base to investigate, but I didn't expect to meet with enemies. If it wasn't for that cat's timely reminder, I might have been pierced through by a whalebone underwater. But now, I am surrounded by fishmen wielding weapons, and there is even a demon shark swimming in the water. Behind the demon shark, there are actually 2 middle-level water elementals preparing their magic. Probably, the moment I entered the water, I was targeted by the sea folk. Unknowingly, I fell into the trap set up by the other party. Could it be that the Ottoman Empire can bribe the sea folk to guard the waters? No, that is definitely impossible. It is impossible for the sea folk to listen to the commands of humans. Then, Alos. Yes, that is the only possibility. The ancient water elemental god Alos. Legend has it that she is the wife of the ancient sea god Stonevilla. Going by seniority, she is the ancestor of the current sea god Oswile. Just like the unlucky fire elemental god Aralavis, She is also sealed in a seal on an island. But judging from the speed of the rise of the magic wave, it is obvious that she has been released. And the ones who are able to do this are most likely the sea folk. In the whispers of the demons, the various countries were attacked by the tribes and elemental descendants under the command of the ancient elemental gods. Looking at the current situation, it is obvious that the one the Ottoman Empire has to face is the water elemental god Alos. There should still be another 2 years before the elemental calamity. There isn't this part in the history. Forget it, I should think of a way to return first before thinking about it. The fishmen who are drooling at me with their mouths wide open aren't in a hurry. They circle around me and provoke me with their spears, but they don't start a decisive battle. It is as though they are a pack of wild wolves hunting for a bull, patiently waiting for their prey to show signs of fatigue and weakness. The silver sacred sword can still be used underwater. But judging from the previous exchange, my physical strength isn't even a third of what it is on land. Furthermore, if I were to fight with my full strength, I definitely wouldn't be able to hold my breath. If I don't think of a way to catch my breath, I might just die for no reason. And if I were to insist on escaping and reveal an opening, the whale bones with chains attached to them would probably turn me into prey. The barbed fishing net would also make me unable to move. Imagining the scene of me being stabbed with dozens of fish bones and harpoons, I can't help but shiver. To fight with the sea folk underwater, no matter how I look at it, it seems foolish. I can only try that trump card of mine. Thus, I sheathed my sword and smile at the fishmen who thought that their prey had given up hope and surrounded me. Incarnation of the sinful demon god. Endless magic power goes berserk. My chaos bloodline causes blue lightning to run amok in my veins. My originally white skin turns into a layer of boiling magma. The flowing blood turns into the surrounding seawater, which evaporates continuously. My green eyes become the focal point of lightning. On my arms and chest, magic runes start to appear mysteriously. At this moment, the Queen of Banshees has already turned into a pitch-black magic sword and is currently enhancing my magic power. The ice magic power causes the surroundings of the sword to start to freeze. Circle of ice. Placing my palms together, the ice magic power instantly erupts. Under the enhancement of my chaos bloodline, the initial 15-meter radius of the circle of ice doubles. Under the water, a flower of ice blooms with me as the core. The ice crystals start to spread under the water. As long as any sea folk touches the ice, they will be stuck and frozen. Freezing breath. The original 2-circle magic, frost breath, turns into the more lethal freezing breath. Following the growth of the ice, the freezing breath causes the water to suddenly turn cold. A few seconds later, the eyes of the fishmen who are still able to struggle roll back and they freeze to death. The water elemental who is slightly closer to me even starts to crack. This horrifying scene causes the sea folk at the edge to retreat hurriedly. As for me, I don't have the leisure to look at my spoils of war. My magic skills are too lousy. Even with the enhancement of my chaos bloodline, I still need to chant incantations when using magic. The moment I opened my mouth just now, cough cough, cough cough, the moment I climb out of the water, I feel my entire throat convulsing. I can't stop coughing, almost coughing out my stomach juice. Cough cough, I drank a lot of water. I almost died just like that. This way of dying is too embarrassing. Clang. A fishbone smashes fiercely on my back. Although I feel a slight pain on my back, the whalebone fishbone is broken. With the Titan's torso which is comparable to an invisible armor, the spears of the fishmen are obviously not as lethal as they were underwater. When I look angrily at the fishmen on the surface of the water, realizing that their weapons are ineffective, they are already frightened to the point of surfacing. The weakness that I felt after transforming makes me feel indescribably uncomfortable. The river water that I drank makes me feel nauseous. It takes a moment for me to recover. But at this moment, I realize that a bigger problem is waiting for me. After transforming into the original sin demon god, my body expands by a whole size. The high-temperature lava on the surface of my body isn't just for show. Furthermore, the frost damages my clothes, so, destroy all the clothes that I brought with me. I am not Shueti. Do I really have to run back naked? Yes, at this moment, I am really envious of those mystical superheroes in my previous life. I don't know how they are able to keep their clothes intact after an intense battle. Those who are still able to keep their underwear after transforming into a gigantic form are even more enviable. Especially a certain Hulk who can transform into a 2 to 3 meter tall muscular tank from time to time, yet his boxers are still as firm as before. After a long silence, I finally squeeze out a question that has no morals at all. Heloise, can you turn into underwear? Go and die. You just asked me to turn into underwear. I will turn into a pair of scissor underwear with blades and make you a eunuch. Alright, considering the authenticity of Heloise's threat and the safety of my little brother, after contemplating for a moment, I finally give up on this brilliant idea. Finally, I thought of an idea. An idea that isn't really an idea that can reduce the degree of embarrassment to the minimum. Half an hour later, a black carriage passing by the embankment of the river is stopped by a cute little child. The little boy only has a leaf wrapped around his private parts. His entire body is dripping wet, but he is carrying a silver greatsword. Uncle, can you bring me along? The weather is too hot, so I went for a swim. In the end, the tide rose and my clothes were washed away. Can you bring me to the church of the God of Law? I hold the greatsword in one hand and cover my private parts with the other. Even if I don't look at myself in the mirror, just by looking at my burning face, I am definitely blushing from embarrassment. If it isn't for the fact that fainting would be even more embarrassing, I really want to fall into a deep sleep. Fart. The moment a certain princess pops her head out of the carriage, she bursts into laughter. Hee hee. Roland, this reminds me of you when you were young. You were also so mischievous and loved to play with water. Do you still remember the days when big sister Kelly helped you bathe? Back then, you were also naked like this. Kelly, who is covering her mouth and giggling, that's enough. Since you are an older sister, don't you know that you shouldn't look at indecent things? Please don't stare down there anymore. Of course you can. Rolo, let Momo hug you. Someone hurry up and take care of this drooling mysterious creature. Hey, don't get touchy. Don't touch, don't flick, and don't pull. Even a little kid has chastity. Lord, so the important matter you were talking about is swimming naked in the summer. Although I don't want to criticize your hobbies, it is best for you to wear underwear next time. Also, you are indeed a core member of the Gentleman Alliance. Alright, Diana, you win. As long as you stop peeking at me, I will admit to everything. I have nothing to say about the Gentleman Alliance. At this moment, I finally see the mist emblem on the carriage clearly. I waited for 2.5 hours, my hair dizzy from the scorching sun. Yet, I ended up waiting for Renee and her group who had just returned from a trip. Obviously, this is another murder case caused by the Star of Misfortune. How unfortunate. To think that I would have to run naked. Darned seafolk, I will never forgive you. Chapter 100. It was already pitch black outside, but I was still deep in thought under the lampstand. I didn't know how to put down the pen that I had been holding for a long time. In the end, I sighed and started writing. Respected Sir Ferdinand, long time no see. I wonder if everything is going smoothly in Sulphur Mountain City. 300 years have passed and a large number of inheritances and secret arts have been lost in the flames of war. The current Mist Royal Knight Order can't even be considered as a third-rate force. Perhaps, our ancestors were a little too unqualified. I have already come to an agreement with the current generation of Mist descendants to provide some instructors to guide those newbies. After much consideration, I can only rely on you for this matter. Please bring Greatsword Saint Fade, Lucas. The young knight has already come to their senses. To the famous ancestors of the Valkyrie, there is no need to be too concerned about their identity as undead. They just need to be more careful on the road. Since I was writing a letter to my elders, I spent quite a bit of effort on it. Actually, the content was quite simple. I just wanted to send a group of instructors from the Red Hunting Hounds to the Donglan Principality. However, if it wasn't for my personal letter inviting them, old Ferdinand, who felt guilty towards his hometown, would probably never step foot on that icy plains again. But without a doubt, even though he had turned into a skeleton knight, old Ferdinand was still the most suitable general to train new recruits. Perhaps, other than battle techniques, he might be able to impart something more important, such as the experience of 100 battles, tactics, and unyielding willpower, such as the spirit of the army represented by that war flag. I look forward to the day when the drums of war sound once more. The young knight will be able to shoulder the glory and responsibility left behind by our ancestors. This matter has to be carried out by you. I sincerely look forward to the day when we meet again in the land of ice and snow. The other letter was much simpler. There was no need to think about the wording at all, and it was straightforward. Donglan has already established the faith of the God of Law as the national religion. It won't make sense for you to hide. You don't need a pope, a complete legal system, a complete church of a true God. This is an opportunity. Once it succeeds, the spread of the faith of law will be saved for decades or even centuries. This is a gamble worth betting on. With the banner of the true God, I don't believe that anyone will dare to stop you from going to Donglan. Using the name of the Church of the True God of Law, the strength I have in my hands can finally be revealed to the world. From a certain perspective, after making this huge bet, when I put down the chips in my hands one by one, I can be considered to be sharing the same fate as the East Mist communal country. The matter regarding the national religion came much earlier than I expected. From a certain standpoint, this was both an opportunity and a challenge. If Donglan were to soar into the sky, the Church of Law would rise along with it. If Donglan were to be destroyed just like that, fine, we could still return to the underground. I sealed the 2 letters with beeswax. After thinking for a moment, I wrote another letter to Adam, who I didn't know was there. When I was done with everything, the last letter that I really didn't want to write, but I had no choice but to put it on the table. Dasos, it seems that you and your country have met with a huge problem. If you don't handle this properly, the Ottoman Empire will become history. Perhaps you think that I am just trying to scare you, but I will have to start from a bunch of fishmen. Indeed, I didn't expect that the ambush on me would lead to so many schemes and troubles. I will have to start from when I returned during the day. At that time, I wore a borrowed cloak and did my best to ignore the ambiguous smiles on the faces of the women in front of me. Instead, I focused my attention on the seafolk that appeared out of nowhere. The seafolk wasn't a single race. It was the collective name for fishmen, merfolk, shrimpmen, sea giants, and other intelligent underwater life forms. Most of them lived along the long coastline of the Asia continent. These underwater life forms couldn't leave the sea, so they lived in tribes and underwater kingdoms. The deeper the sea, the greater the pressure. The sea monsters in the deep sea were unimaginably strong. The weak were unable to survive in the deep sea. The living space of the seafolk wasn't limitless. There were quite a few scattered fishmen tribes along the coastline. However, as they couldn't leave the water for too long, they posed a limited threat to the life forms on land. In fact, their threat couldn't even compare to the invasion of a neighboring country. However, due to the aggressive nature of the seafolk, they basically had a natural hostile relationship with the various countries on the continent. Thus, even if I were to meet a red dragon in the river, I would still find it understandable. However, to meet a clearly organized seafolk was inconceivable. As the capital of the Ottoman Empire, just by looking at the surface of the river, Kajisi city wasn't completely defenseless. It was completely unimaginable that there would be a fishmen tribe living in the river. Fishmen, amphibious life forms that could survive in both freshwater and seawater, might exist along the river. However, a powerful fishmen tribe that could rear demon sharks would definitely not live in the river. After all, demon sharks are marine life forms. If they were to stay in the river for too long, they would die sooner or later. In other words, most of these fishmen followed the estuary in the opposite direction and arrived at this river town. This wasn't easy. All the cities along the river of the Ottoman Empire had their fleets. How could they not discover so many cities along the way? To think that they actually allowed the fishmen to come directly to the heart of the city. Why did they spend so much effort and take so many risks to come here? Could it be that they just wanted to take a look at this city and observe the enthronement ceremony? However, my doubts didn't last for long. UN? Demon sharks and whalebones bones? Harpoons. Are their fins white? UN, those are the fishmen of the white whale tribe. Since you met them underwater and even got attacked by them, they should be here to loot this city. Not long after I reached home, I recalled that Siren Tracy is also a member of the Sea Folk. It is said that sirens have a high standing among the Sea Folk. She might know something, so I sent someone to invite her over. In the end, just as I spoke a few words, the other party dropped a heavy bomb on me. Loot this city? Loot the capital of the Ottoman Empire? Has that tribe gone mad? They're not crazy. In the entire southern Bay Area of the Black Sea, the White Whale tribe is one of the top 3 super tribes. The Murlocs are only their vanguard. Depending on the strength of their prey, the Sea Snake tribe, Naga tribe, and Sea Giants will all come later. There might even be mermaids and sirens. However, it is impossible for them to attack the city. This is equivalent to offending the entire empire. Aren't they afraid of being surrounded by the fleets? You don't understand the Sea Folk at all. To the Sea Folk, they don't have to worry about offending anyone. The White Whale tribe is a famous hunting tribe, as well as a mercenary tribe. They can just leave after they have harvested enough. It is impossible for the continent races to catch up to them. Besides, do you think that without anyone guiding them, they would be able to come to this city directly? After pondering for a moment, I could smell the scent of a conspiracy. The fleets along the way didn't notice them. Most probably, someone is controlling the fleets and pretending not to see them. Or perhaps, the Sea Folk might as well attach themselves to a normal merchant ship and have a smooth journey. As for the motive, that is even more obvious. If the capital were to be attacked by outsiders on the same day as the inauguration ceremony of the new emperor, Dasos's position as the emperor would be shaken. Tracy says with a face full of disdain. That darned fatty is involved in this plan. Since he is so afraid of you, you can go and ask him. Lord Eggbreaker? He is involved in it too. I am the liaison sent by the White Whale tribe. However, he kept pestering me, making me unhappy. So, I placed a charm curse on him, causing him to unknowingly do something foolish and become a eunuch. However, the weird thing is that he seems to have recovered. Alright, everyone's eyeballs almost popped out. The Tracy in front of me actually didn't deny that she is a spy for the Sea Folk. The nonsensical mission that I accepted back then is actually related to her. However, the plan seems to have failed, so I took the opportunity to leave the White Whale tribe. Failed? Isn't it already a success? The other group of people I was in contact with was suddenly killed, and their lair was also burned. Without the guidance of humans, it is impossible for the White Whale tribe to come to this city through the waterway. Furthermore, they wouldn't care about the reason for the failure. If I were to return to the tribe as a failure, I would only become the seasoning for the tribe chief's afternoon tea. Clutching my forehead, I vaguely guessed what had happened. Right, those people who contacted me are wearing rings with stars and eyes on them. Many clues are placed in front of me. Just by thinking about it, I understand what happened. Just like how Dasos is guarding against the Celestial Tower who helped him rise to power, the Celestial Tower isn't completely on Dasos' side. They colluded with the White Whale tribe and the nobles who are against Dasos. Clearly, they are betting on both sides. If Dasos were to cooperate with them obediently, the assault of the Sea Folk might not have happened. However, it is apparent that the remnants of the Celestial Tower intend to fight to the death with Dasos after all of their members were listed as wanted criminals. Those people actually dare to send the White Whale tribe to attack the coastline. However, they don't know that after that Lord awakens, the Sea Folk is at least 3 times stronger than before. When the huge wave hits, they are unable to stop the waves from breaking through their defenses. When the White Whale tribe's flood dissipates, how many of them will be able to survive? Alos. Hearing this name, Tullius is taken aback for a moment before nodding his head silently. The Sea Folk are no longer the Sea Folk of the past. Under the will of that Lord and the Queen of Storms, all of the Sea Folk are thirsting for the fresh blood and souls of the creatures on the surface. That is what they rely on to curry favor with their superiors. In the coastal waters, under the guidance of the Great Existence, various departments are working together. I'm afraid that war is unavoidable. The Queen of Storms is the guardian god of the Sea Folk, but she is also one of the malevolent gods of chaos. Obviously, under the incitement of the ancient water elemental god, under the summons of the holy war, and after many years of fighting with the surface creatures, the sea folk have already gotten rid of their neutral identity and started to lean towards the side of chaos. Once this assault really starts, looking at the current situation, the assault of the white whale tribe is bound to happen. I'm afraid that it will immediately exceed the expectations of the nobles, turning a small-scale assault into a war between nations. Unlike them, I have many friends in the human world. I'm afraid that those fellows didn't trust me from the start. Who knows, that count might have other motives for approaching me. Why didn't you say so earlier? I've already defected and I don't dare to return to the sea. My source of information has long been cut off. Isn't this the same as not confirming the authenticity of the invasion? How should I say it? Who should I say it to? Now that even the vanguard troops have been seen, I can tell you directly now. After that, how you deal with it is up to you humans, it has nothing to do with me. I'm alone and I'm of a different race. Both sides won't trust me. A fence-sitter will only offend both sides at the same time. I can't do anything about it and I don't intend to. After finishing her words, the siren has a relaxed expression. However, the listeners are helpless. She is relaxed, but this troublesome ball has been kicked onto someone else's head. Back then, we discussed for a long time, but in the end, we were unable to come to a conclusion. Regardless of whether it is the strategy to deal with the invasion or the veracity of the siren's words. Yes, even though she seems extremely calm and took the initiative to reveal a series of secrets, we still suspect her. Regardless of whether it is the legends or reality, the siren isn't a kind and honest creature. Her taking the initiative to confess made us suspect that there was a trap. Furthermore, I keep feeling a subtle sense of incongruity, as though I have missed out on something very important. Dusk had fallen, and my spies had just returned. Is there any new news? The black cat jumps onto the windowsill. She has been faking a nap by the table, but the 4 clones that she has spread out are omnipresent spies. The residents of the siren and the riverside are all within her range of surveillance. Yes, that siren is indeed untrustworthy. At least, she isn't as indifferent as she claims. She sent out her seals to monitor the fishmen tribe in the river. As for herself, she even went to the thief guild and mercenary guild to entrust them. It seems that she is also looking for something. Something? It seems to be some kind of tribute. It is said that it is related to the sea god. Related to the sea god? Then, as a siren, it is only natural for her to look for it. Is there no other news? How is the situation in the river? The fishmen have started to build a camp in the river. It seems that they are really the vanguard troops, intending to prepare for the main army later on. I nod my head. The intelligence is accurate, but I still can't come to a conclusion. There is too little intelligence. Our understanding of this country and the sea folk is too little. Roland, I have guessed it. Do you want to know? You can eat dried fish and milk until you are full. All right, I am just joking. I know that you are not a cat. Don't bite me, just say it. As though enjoying my headache, the gleeful cat walks back and forth on the windowsill, her tail sticking up to the sky. My foolish disciple, it is actually very simple. Benefits. The sea folk aren't a charity organization. Taking such a huge risk to attack the capital of a country, how can it be possible without sufficient benefits? Also, the water elemental god isn't the guardian of the sea folk. With them working together, the water elementals and the fishmen have become one family. How can it be possible without sufficient benefits? You are saying. Damn it. This game is really big. Under the cat's depiction, a water elemental disintegrates in the air, turning into a drizzle. In the rain, a group of wooden figures representing the fishmen are advancing. With the help of the water elemental god Alos, the sea folk are about to reach the shore. From a magical perspective, it makes sense. Such benefits are enough to drive the sea folk crazy. Perhaps, this time, the Ottoman Empire is really in deep trouble. Chapter 101. AD 1897, the summer of the Griffin, the 29th emperor of the Ottoman Empire, Dasos I, was about to ascend to the throne. The white whale tribe planned to invade, but the news was accidentally leaked. After that, the emperor was furious. In one night, he demoted 37 nobles, removed their positions, and investigated more than 200 high-ranking officers from the 3 major military regions. Crosses were erected along the river, stretching for several kilometers. It was known as the Bloody Night of the White Whale. On the same day, the Ottoman Third Fleet stationed at Finlow End, upstream of Kajisi City, and the Ottoman First Fleet stationed at Sea City arrived at the capital on the same day. They began to encircle and annihilate the White Whale tribe. On that day, the Hermit River, which had the nickname of Flowing Green Agate, was covered in blood. The sound of cannons roared, and the sounds of killing shook the sky. Several districts of the capital became battlefields. The 2 fleets attacked from both sides, and the war started smoothly. With the addition of the demigod Hydra, the 9-headed sea dragon, and countless merfolk and sea monsters, the Ottoman Empire's national hero, dragon hunter Damas, died on the spot. The imperial tutor, blood mage Emperor Marsalit, was heavily injured. The first fleet was wiped out, and the second fleet was half destroyed. During the war, as the sea monsters collectively exerted their strength, the river water rose and flooded the docks and germ areas of Kajisi City. Large amounts of water elementals came ashore, and it rained continuously. The war fell into a stalemate. In the next 2 weeks, 19 coastal and riverside cities of the Ottoman Empire were attacked. Sorceland City and 9 other cities fell on that day. Sorceland City was attacked by the Bloodshark tribe formed by the Piranha fishmen, and the entire city was massacred. With the Bloody Night of the White Whale as a symbol, the horn of the eternal holy war sounded again. Under the command of the water elemental god, Alos, and the evil god, the Queen of Storms, the merfolk who came ashore became the vanguard, and the Chaos faction made a comeback. Due to the information from the princess of a small country, Renee, the Ottoman Empire avoided the desperate situation of being ambushed. Sighing at the kindness of the Donglan Principality and Princess Renee, the emperor promised that the Donglan Principality will forever be a brotherly country of the Ottoman Empire and once again proposed to Princess Renee. However, after that, the princess rejected the emperor's proposal with the reason that the current situation was chaotic and she was worried about her homeland. However, in private, there was a rumor that Princess Renee complained about Dasos's absurdity and threw 2 red high heels at him, hitting the emperor himself and his finance director, Hermit. It was said that Hermit fainted on the spot, and the scene was a mess. The country is in trouble, but he's still thinking. I've never seen such an idiotic emperor. I said I'm not interested in men. You want me to marry you? Unless you find an Edwina's waist and put on a dress. In the eyes of the few who are in the know, Dasos's move to fish in troubled waters is indeed cunning. The so-called country of brothers caused the East Mist communal country to be removed from the list of vassal states. As more and more rumors spread, as the shadow of war approached, as a row of crosses with corpses hung on it, as a large number of members of the opposing factions were sent to jail, the original stigma no longer mattered. As long as he is able to lead his people through the crisis, it is more practical than any false reputation. Although the people's evaluation of the emperor had more criticism, the princess of a small country who had made the emperor so obsessed with her that he lost his face and his rationality had become the hottest topic recently. Her beauty and straightforward personality were widely known, and the reputation of the pure and holy snow lotus at the top of a high mountain began to spread. It was said that although she looked innocent and young, she had a special charm that attracted the attention of the king. At this time, listening to the rumors collected by her companions, the flower was so angry that she wanted to kill someone. The flower at the top of a high mountain? Dasos, you sure know how to do favors at little cost. Do you still need me to change the topic? I'll remember this grudge, don't give me a chance. But at this time, I didn't have the time to complain. There were many miscellaneous matters on my shoulders. After receiving the news, Dasos investigated it and then patiently used the explosion as a pretext to get rid of the dissidents and consolidate his power. This was still within expectations. After that, Dasos used the excuse of returning the favor and the so-called brotherly country to make the aid and resources in the agreement known to the public, speeding up the speed of fulfilling the agreement. Soon, he fulfilled the agreement, and I had to return the key to him. If I didn't hurry, I would have rejoiced for nothing. After all, this was the capital of the Ottoman Empire. Even if there was some trouble, no one believed that the Ottoman Empire would lose. The nine-headed dragon might be strong, but it wasn't invincible. As the subordinate of the malevolent god, the Queen of Storms, its appearance in battle represented the official intervention of the malevolent god of chaos. Its strength was top-notch, and its ability to attract hatred was also top-notch. It was possible that the Dragon Slayer god envoy sent by a certain god was already on the way. However, the reason why Dasos hastened the fulfillment of the agreement was probably because he thought that he had some expectations for the things in the base. If an aerial fleet were to suddenly charge out from the water, it would definitely change the situation of the entire war. Of course, he was also prepared to not gain anything. If I didn't want to gain nothing, I should really hurry up. Did you find Tracy? While we were preparing our military strength, the sudden disappearance of the siren became a problem for us. She suddenly returned to the circus with a box in her hands. There is a special seal on it. Looking at the emblem of a guardian with a shield and a sword intersecting, it should be the emblem of a certain royal family. The emblem of a royal family? Most probably, it was a stolen tribute. Harlois and I smiled at each other. We felt that we had finally found our target this time. Waiting was worth it, and it was time to reel in the bait. Stonevilla's ocean bottle, the legendary god equipment of the ancient sea god. It is said that it was able to stir up endless waves in ancient times. However, due to the passing of the ancient god, it had lost most of its power. If it were to fall into the hands of Lady Storm and Stonevilla's wife, the ancient water elemental goddess, it might be able to regain its god power. Upon knowing that there was such a rare treasure among the stolen tributes, and that the siren was looking for the stolen tribute through the subsidiary body of greed, we immediately came to a realization. Regardless of the reason why she leaked the secret of the seafolk, as long as Tracy obtains the god equipment, we must not let her return to the ocean. The tributes, gifts, of the Swallow Federation were stolen by the Celestial Tower. Furthermore, Tracy had a connection with the Celestial Tower previously. If she had the intention, she would probably know where the missing tributes are. Based on our expectations, when the Celestial Tower became a wanted criminal, she would probably be the only one who could find the tributes. Thus, just as Tracy returned to her tent in the circus, an uninvited guest came knocking on her door. Open the door. Checking the water meter. What? You didn't install a water meter? Then, you are the one who delivered water to my doorstep. Forget it, there is no need for you to open the door. Your house won't need a door in the future. Alright, when the legend rank Holy Knight raised his sacred sword and charged forward, when the legend rank Druil summoned a storm and lightning to blow away the entire tent, the tent was destroyed. At this moment, Trace's face was filled with astonishment. She had just opened the box containing the tributes and looked at us, who suddenly appeared, in shock. Haha, you didn't expect this, did you? We have been waiting for this day. Hand over the god equipment. I walked out gleefully, but when I looked at it, I was dumbfounded. What is this? A god equipment. The thing in the box has nothing to do with the bottle. It is a white jade sculpture and its shape looks like a banana, like ivory, like something else, really. The more I look at it, the more it looks like it. This is an artificial penis, a top-grade warm jade. It can simulate the body temperature of a human. Looking at its color and craftsmanship, it is definitely a top-grade product. It should be the work of a master. This is the rarest of the rarest. It is definitely a god equipment. Alright, I regret bringing Beifong along. In an instant, he revealed the truth that we tried our best to avoid. This is a tribute. Her privacy was exposed in an instant. Tracy nodded her head blankly. It is indeed a concubine's item. The pronunciation of the concubine and the tribute is exactly the same. No wonder the son of greed misunderstood. Since you all found out, there is no need for me to hide it anymore. Actually, one of the main reasons why I stayed in the human world is to research on adult products. You all should know that most of us sirens are female and we are cold-blooded creatures. Furthermore, we live alone in the sea, so it is hard for us to meet our own kind. Thus, I intend to open the first adult products shop on the sea. It should be welcomed by sirens, mermaids, Naga, and other female seafolk. My first step is to gather materials from the human world who specialize in this path. It is a pity that the more I delve into this path, the more I realize how shallow I am. I regret my previous shallowness. I intend to spend another 100 years to research this path, and after I become a master of this path, I will open the mobile shop of my dreams. This beauty is clearly saying words that are devoid of moral integrity. Her eyes are filled with passion, but her face has the resolve of a martyr. I instinctively feel that she isn't lying. She really intends to devote her entire life into this path. I finally understood why I instinctively felt that this siren beauty was so familiar. Isn't this another specialty of Sulphur Mountain City, gentlemen? Pervert, pervert, pervert? It is a pity. Perhaps it is because we are of different species that humans are unable to understand our way of thinking. When they heard what I said, they looked at me with a weird gaze. That fat count even pestered me endlessly. Chimph, to us, tools are tools to send away loneliness. That is just an inanimate object. On the other hand, partners are companions who accompany each other through life and death. Those are two completely different things. Sigh, it is hard to find someone who understands me. At this moment, when the siren laments that she isn't understood, that man stands out. His face shows the resolve that is similar to Trace's. That is incredible. That is too touching. Comrade, referring to companions who share the same goal, I can understand. The path between the sexes is broad and profound. Actually, I am also pursuing my own path and I am not understood by others. I can help you. Leave the things like testing it personally to me. Alright, everyone can't bear to listen on anymore. Ignoring the surprised siren, they start their daily routine, beating up Bayfoam. Clutching my head, I really don't know what to say. The siren in front of me reminds me of those fellows in Sulphur Mountain City, making me want to keep my distance. What about the tribute? What about the bottle of the sea god? Didn't the celestial tower snatch it away? Tracy shakes her head. Back then, they acted together with the local thief guild. They just used the thief guild to conceal their identity. The ones who acted were still them. How could a small thief guild deal with the envoy of a large country? After the matter, as repayment, they should have thrown the spoils of war to the thief guild. While coming to a realization, a faint ominous premonition appears in my mind. This is usually a sign that I have fallen into a trap. What is the name of the thief guild? Blood Pressure Brotherhood? Oh, I remember that their emblem is a bloody handprint. It should be the Bloodhand Brotherhood. Alright, this name does sound familiar. Thinking back, the memories of the past seem like it was just yesterday. I almost burst into tears. This time, I reaped what I sowed and worked for nothing. I think I know where the bottle of the sea god is. Harlois. Return me the milk bottle that I gave you. Yes, when I first arrived in this city, I treated the Bloodhand Brotherhood as a target to practice my swordsmanship. Back then, I did hear that they stole the tribute and I thought that their strength would be decent. But in the end, they swept through them and even their guild leader was sliced into two. In the end, I didn't get much out of it. After killing their guild leader, I did see a box in the secret room and there was an antique bottle in it. It seems to be worth quite a bit, but coincidentally, the cat that I was raising wanted me to buy a milk bottle. She also thought that the bottle was artistic, so she used it. There is no magic wave on it at all. Who would have thought that it would be a former god equipment? Meow, I'm not giving it to you. God equipment bottles are more suited to my taste. If you want to exchange it, you have to return it with something of equal value. Just as I was about to reason with the darned cat and snatch it from her forcefully if I can't convince her, a ding sound resounds. I can't help but shiver. This sound never represents anything good. The darned system is here to kick me when I'm down again. Cough, you got it right, but there is no prize. Congratulations to the gentleman group that you have formed. They are the beautiful siren, Tracy, whose goal in life is to open an adult goods shop. When the number of gentlemen, perverts, in your gentleman group reaches 10, you will receive the epic tier title, King of Gentlemen. The effects are definitely powerful. There are currently 9 gentlemen and you are just short of one. Please continue to work hard. Actually, there is one in front of you. I recommend the ogre Kavan and Dishu, who likes to play around with one another. Although their gentlemanly degree is a little low, the system is helping you this time. You barely pass. There are currently 8 gentleman members. They include the female elf Momo, who is obsessed with shotas, the exotic elf Diana, who has triple god status, Kagio, who is gradually walking on the wrong path in life, Beifong, he doesn't need any adjectives, he is a legend, he is the legendary Beifong, Prince Grim, who will one day blow up the entire continent, the beautiful Kolos, whose gender is Kolos, the Princess Renee, who is gradually obsessed with her grandfather, and the Holy Knight Roland, who is gradually awakening to cross-dressing. Cross-dressing your head. You are the one who is obsessed with cross-dressing. Your entire family is obsessed with cross-dressing. You are the one who is a gentleman. Your entire family are gentlemen. Chapter 102. This world is still very harmonious and loving. Don't always think about scheming and scheming. This isn't a novel, so how can there be so many coincidences and manipulators behind the scenes? Look, isn't this all a misunderstanding? This is my conclusion regarding the siren incident. As expected, there is still true love in the world. We must learn to trust others. Meow, Roland, no matter how you try to escape from reality, what will come will come. Open your eyes and take a look. The black cat on my shoulder mocked me maliciously. Shut up, I am just pretending not to see it. Yes, I am escaping from this terrifying reality. The righteous church of the God of Law actually became a place for gentlemen to exchange their perverted thoughts. Back then, I was still a normal draken. At that time, I had just crawled out of my egg. I fell in love with him at first glance. He was my adoptive mother. His comb was so majestic, his feathers so gorgeous. Later on, I found out that my egg was lost and the person who picked it up used his own poultry to hatch me. So, your normal time is only a few minutes after hatching? How ridiculous are you? Also, what is the meaning of the adoptive mother and him? He is obviously a male. Also, since he has a comb, he should be a rooster. It was wrong from the start. It is said that oviparous creatures will treat the first creature they see as their mother. Are you draconians the same? I have never heard of it before. You are the only one who is unique. Let me catch my breath first. This fellow really has too many things to complain about. I really can't stop complaining. The great hero Odysseus. Yes, he did have a relationship with a siren friend of mine, but he isn't some great hero. He is just a hoodlum and a playboy. It is said that more than 20 sirens have been tricked by him. He is a bastard. We sirens are really pitiful. We are passionate and lonely by nature. We always have some treasures that we picked up from the sea, but in the end, we are always tricked by those bad men who pretend to be heroes. For example, Saint Cassola, Dragon Knight Edwin. Even if we meet a good man, he will turn into a sloppy uncle in less than 20 years. Then, he will turn into an old man after a short nap, making the rest of our lives miserable. That's why most of us find an island to live on, but it's so lonely that we'll still be tricked. Alright, I know that it's hard for you to find someone to vent your frustrations to, but please don't ruin the image of those great heroes in my heart. Why do those great heroes who left their names in history seem like a bunch of emotional swindlers in your eyes? Alright, actually, those stories of stealing divine artifacts and secrets from the sirens do seem like emotional swindlers who break into a lonely widow's house to swindle her for money and sex. PH, that's because you sirens are too stupid. Look at us elves, we won't fall in love with a short-lived species. Those short-lived species shouted the slogan "You only have one life," saying that they didn't need to be restrained and wanted to live a brilliant and free life. Wasn't that another way of saying that they were irresponsible and did whatever they wanted? Just like what you said, even if they met a good one, they would die immediately. No matter how I look at it, it's a tragic ending. However, naive children are an exception. They are so pure and adorable, and their eyes are filled with innocence and trust when they look at me. I can slowly paint the colors I want on this blank drawing board without worrying about it turning bad. I can harvest the fruits when they mature. To us elves, what is 20 years? As long as we can eat delicious fruits, even if it's a tragedy, I will accept it. Hey, is this the police? There's a weird auntie here. Momo, can you stop sneaking glances at me when you say such words? Can you stop drooling? I really feel that it's really dangerous. Explosion is an art. No, the explosion is just a means to create a safe zone. Pitch, how shallow. As expected, you are just a short-sighted human. No wonder your work is filled with the smell of a third-rate craftsman. Even though it's exquisite and accurate, there isn't a single trace of passion or creativity. I have also seen your so-called artwork. What do you mean by the time and power of the explosion is uncertain? Are you intending to blow yourself up? This is an insult to our entire goblin engineering and goblin alchemy. Do you know how we treat those foolish dwarfs who doubt our goblin art? We kick their buttocks and blow them up. All right, Ingo. Belle, I know that you are excited to be able to escape, but the reason why we saved you is definitely not to allow you to cause destruction. And Grim, you know that you are a man of action, but if you don't keep your bomb, I will hang you from the ceiling. I mean what I say. And Ingo, if you dare to detonate the alchemy bomb in your hands, I will throw you into Roland's 88th cannon and send you back to prison with a single blast. The area where the royal prison is located is also in great trouble due to the flood this time. Naturally, the dwarfs who almost lost their lives in the underground prison won't just sit and wait for their deaths. Without any hesitation, they brought forward their plan to escape from the prison ahead of schedule. The news of the giant robot causing havoc in the prison and the prison riot has become the recent headlines. Right now, I can only hope that the secret agents of the royal family are focused on the battlefield and hope that Dasos doesn't fall out with me at this crucial moment. At the very least, he doesn't come looking for me before my plan is completed. Old friend, even if you save me this time, don't expect old Lomans to give up on his hobby. Let's spar on the battlefield next time. Old Lomans will return the favor. Also, fallen grey dwarf, you are the same. Sooner or later, we will cross hands with each other. Ha, as expected of a smelly and stubborn shield dwarf. We should just watch as you drown. H, us shield dwarfs aren't country bumpkins who have never seen water in their entire lives. When old Lomans was hunting plesiosaurs underwater, you were probably still sucking on your mother's milk. Oh, there's no need to wait for that day. Let's give it a try now. Alright, I know that you shield dwarfs and grey dwarfs are arch-enemies, but at least think about your newly established relationship as prison mates. Alright, as expected, I can't beat around the bush, so I'll just say it directly. Dwarfs, put down that stool and cup and go out to fight. Otherwise, I'll throw you into the cannon barrel and shoot you out too. I mysteriously feel so tired, as if my mind has been polluted. As expected, I shouldn't have listened to these fellows. I should just continue sighing about the beauty of the world. Big brother Roland, your tea. Oh, thank you. My great-great-great-granddaughter is still the most considerate. Just as I said that, I mysteriously felt that something was off. Great-granddaughter and great-grandfather? You sure have a heavy taste. As expected, this black cat wouldn't let me have a good time. If it wasn't for the fact that she was bound to me, with her identity as an undying old demon and her twisted personality of being unable to see others doing well, she would definitely be a gentleman. However, her sarcasm made my heart tremble. I was also a little suspicious. Why has this lass become so obedient recently? Also, that system notice that I can't look at directly also made my heart pound. However, seeing her smile sweetly as she served tea to her temporary teacher, Diana, I shook my head and dispelled my suspicions. She should finally know how to respect her elders. The system has never been reliable. I'm not a crossdresser, so naturally, Renee wouldn't be blind enough to like me. We look so similar, so wouldn't it be narcissistic for her to like me? After hesitating for a moment, I finally spoke. Everyone, prepare yourselves. I'm going out to find 2 people. When I return, I'm afraid that we'll have a tough battle ahead of us. Right, prepare to abandon this place as well. That's right, ever since the sea folk invaded, the enthronement ceremony, which we didn't even know if it could still be held, was postponed indefinitely. From then on, there wasn't even a reason for us to participate in the ceremony, so there was naturally no need for us to stay here. Also, I keep feeling that something is wrong with the situation. The development of this war is too strange. If this is the front line of the eternal sacred war, the appearance of the god-pet, nine-headed dragon Hydra is too early. However, after thinking about it for a moment, it is to be expected. At his level, it isn't difficult for the nine-headed dragon emperor to transform into a human. There is a high possibility that he is just hiding at the bottom of the river as an army supervisor. However, the pincer attack of the two fleets stunned him. If he doesn't make a move, the two semigods of the Ottoman Empire are more than enough to wipe out all of the seafolk. Thus, the nine-headed dragon, who was forced to make a move, fell into a predicament while massacring the seafolk. As the pet of the malevolent god, he also represents the will of the malevolent god. If he were to chase after them on shore, the war would escalate. Even if the Order gods don't make a move personally, they would definitely send out their dragonslayer experts. The direct subordinates of the gods are completely different from the semigods of the humans. However, if he were to run away, not only would the seafolk here be annihilated, his master would also be embarrassed. Thus, not advancing or retreating is the best choice. The Orland Empire probably has some hidden forces as well. However, they have already rested for a few hours after firing their cannons a few times. Most likely, they are afraid of offending the great gods. The nine-headed dragon on the other side is the same as well. It has no intention of leaving its original position. As long as you don't provoke it, it will only occasionally spit out its dragon breath once or twice. While watching the seafolk fight intensely, 7 of its 9 heads are lazing around. The horn of the eternal sacred war has just been blown and no one is prepared. If they were to go all out now, no matter who it is, they would only end up as cannon fodder. The nine-headed dragon and the Ottoman Empire aren't fools. However, this kind of stalemate makes me feel that it is dangerous. A stalemate on the battlefield is usually a situation where both sides are in a kind of equilibrium. However, this kind of equilibrium is always temporary. Both sides are strangely restraining themselves because they aren't mentally prepared for the final battle and the huge price to pay. However, they will be prepared sooner or later. As the stalemate ends, it is more likely that one side will suffer a crushing defeat. Looking at the current situation, the loser is most likely the unprepared Ottoman Empire. If Lady Storm decides to go all out in the battle, even if she doesn't mind dying prematurely, if some rash semigod runs off to kill her beloved nine-headed dragon. Just thinking about what would happen if such a possibility occurs, I feel that this riverside city is no longer safe. The technology that Darvis gave me is already in my hands. The fleet of resources is already out of the country's borders. The contract could be fulfilled at any moment. I also need to make preparations to retreat. However, before that, Renee, come along with me. There is a need to befriend those two people. After hesitating for a moment, I call for another person. Ingo, you come over as well. This time, we are going to meet your peers. Your mission is what you are best at. Brag as hard as you can and try your best to bluff them over. Master of Magic Engineering Timlad and Miracle Alchemist Olivia Wright, the creators of Magic Engineering and the creator of the future 5th tier army, the Magic Engineering Dragon. Among the heroes of the future war epic, they are the two most dazzling ones. War is the catalyst and training ground for all kinds of new technologies. In the future war, the magic engineering that these two came up with would create countless godly weapons and weapons of war. The reason why the Ottoman Empire was able to reach the pinnacle of the human world before it was destroyed was due to their contributions. Of course, it was only after the war with the underground world that they first proposed the magic engineering field, which was a combination of alchemy magic circles and engineering, and the magic machinery dragon was a product of 60 years later. Of the two heroes of Kargassi now, one was a rookie engineer who sold toys for a living, and the other was an unqualified alchemist who had just been kicked out of the Alchemy Academy. Even though they are still unknown small characters, even though history has changed and these two might not be able to rise again, in history, the two of them are too important. How can I, who already lack manpower, let them go? The reason why I didn't look for them all this while is that geniuses are a little weird. Furthermore, these two are great geniuses who left their mark in history. Alright, I'll be direct. Back then, I was looking for normal people to join my team. These two are definitely gentlemen among gentlemen, so why would I look for them? But now, looking at the system notification, I shook my head helplessly. As people who surpass common sense, we are commonly known as perverted gentlemen. Although we aren't understood by others, that is because we are too persistent in pursuing the path in our hearts, neglecting the eyes of ordinary people. But to a true gentleman, it doesn't matter if others can't understand us. It is sufficient as long as we, the seekers of the path, can understand each other. As the king of gentlemen, you are able to understand the sufferings and pain of others. You are the same kind as all gentlemen, so naturally, everyone will respect you. Honorary title, King of Gentlemen. As a gentleman among gentlemen, the legendary uncrowned king, your name has spread across the entire plain. All gentlemen will feel like old friends upon meeting you, and their impression of you will increase greatly. However, ordinary people will instinctively hate you and stay away from you. At the same time, as the king of gentlemen, you will instinctively attract gentlemen to meet you. When you raise an invitation to them, there is a higher chance of them joining your team. Back then, even though that ogre's strength wasn't too bad and he had Trace's guarantee that he would be obedient and become a good fighter as long as he provided food, I was still hesitant on whether I should allow him to join us. But very quickly, I didn't need to hesitate anymore. The escape of those 4 short fellows instantly caused the upper limit of the Gentleman Alliance to exceed. Thus, the system unhesitatingly gave me this title. Congratulations, King of Gentlemen. As the king of perverts, your level of gentlemanliness is unparalleled. Don't talk to me, mommy, there's a pervert here. Hehe, I suddenly find you more pleasing to the eye. I have already tested the might of this halo. Hearing what other people said, I was still a little happy. However, when this pleasing to the eye came from the Draken, I felt a chill down my spine. Cough cough, back to the main topic. After obtaining the good reputation of the King of Gentlemen, I was so depressed that I almost gave up on myself. Now, I can only hope that this title is really as impressive as it says, that it can help me lure those 2 future rising stars. It's fine if I haven't heard of any Timlad, but Senior Olivia is a famous freak. She failed 7 out of the 13 main subjects and was directly kicked out of the academy. She is almost the shame of the academy, so how can she be considered a genius? Unexpectedly, we had an additional companion in our group. The granddaughter of the Kane Holy Knight, Catherine, was actually from the 3rd Alchemy Academy in Kajisi. It was said that she was Olivia's classmate. Since the sword was already in my hands, Catherine naturally made her decision. The current her had already become my knight retainer and mage apprentice. Yes, the path she chose wasn't the path of a knight, nor the path of a mage. Can I try out both paths? I really can't make up my mind. Based on what I knew, she still hadn't given up on her previous studies in alchemy. A person's energy and time were both limited. Trying to study 3 different paths at the same time was basically courting death. However, I didn't say anything. In any case, reality would force her to make a choice sooner or later. When she heard that we were looking for an alchemy genius, as an alchemist, she volunteered herself. However, when she heard that it was Olivia, displeasure filled her face. It should be in the vicinity. Do you know where Olivia lives? As expected, I received a negative answer from Catherine. Thus, I found a random person to ask for directions. Excuse me, do you know where Olivia's alchemy? Alright, halfway through his sentence, the man's face paled upon hearing the name Olivia. He started sweating profusely and his eyes darted around frantically. Alright, just from this passerby's behavior, I could roughly guess what kind of person she was. If she is a little more gentlemanly, with the help of the King of Gentlemen, it should be easy to coax her into joining us. However, if she is too gentlemanly, that bunch of bastards is enough. Should I hope that she is more normal or more abnormal? How contradictory. Boom. Alright, you don't need to point the way. Little brother, you should hurry up and run. I think I found her. That beautiful green mushroom cloud, the screams not too far away, and the passerby's action of running away explained everything. This color, looks like wearing a dwarf gas mask was the correct choice. Looks like there's no need to hesitate anymore. The Gentleman Alliance is about to add more people. Chapter 103. Olivia, who has the title of Miracle Alchemist, looks like a cute ordinary girl just by looking at her appearance. Her wavy, smooth blonde hair shines with the radiance of youth. The light green alchemist robe she wears is unable to conceal her proud figure, which far surpasses her peers. Her face, which has some baby fat on it, gives her a naturally perplexed aura. However, her silver spectacles give her a scholarly aura. Although it is obviously the first time we are meeting, Olivia gives me an inexplicable sense of familiarity. Perhaps, it is because her scholarly aura is similar to that of Eliza and that Marguerite. Especially her silver spectacles, it is obvious that they are also plain goods for show. How do I see through it? Not mentioning that Eliza is also wearing plain glasses, one of Olivia's spectacles is missing. However, the girl doesn't seem to notice it at all. Even though the guest is already sitting in front of her, she is still lowering her head and muttering to herself about what went wrong that caused the experiment to fail. Even though there is someone in front of her, the young lady's eyes are unfocused and her mind is wandering. Not only is she completely defenseless, the dirt on her face isn't even wiped clean. Furthermore, the decorations in the living room are destructive and messy. Just the first impression of her makes me feel that she is a careless person. With just a quick glance, I roughly understand why Catherine is in a bad mood when she sees Olivia. So, it's because of the conflict between social classes. Olivia's youthful and moving curves make her originally plain and old-fashioned dress seem extravagant. When the same dress is worn on Catherine's body, a slender and flat figure is extremely advantageous for riding a horse in combat. How would you be able to hold on to your weapon under the turbulent waves? You guys are born to be good seedlings for knights. Next time I see Catherine staring at the chest of a beauty like this, I will console her like this. Why is it you? Alright, my knight retainer, Renee, also has a bitter expression on her face. She grits her teeth as she looks at them. So big, how can they be the same age? With such big breasts, they are bound to droop sooner or later. Alright, let us rationally ignore this mysterious curse and return our attention to the main topic at hand. Cough, Miss Olivia, nice to meet you. I am Roland. A simple greeting isn't able to wake a certain person's wandering mind. Could it be that I gave you the rock magic oil too early? Then, try adding some neutralizing agent. Hey, Miss Olivia, do you hear me? Well, Alchemist had already taken out his pen and started writing and drawing, and was ignored again. That's how it should be. Olivia. Big-breasted girls. It was dawn. Class is about to begin. Kathleen moved closer to Olivia's ear and shouted. Her voice echoed in the room and even I was shocked. The resentment in her voice was even more obvious. Olivia finally came back to her senses. Ah, Miss Dana, I'm not daydreaming, I'm really listening. Alright, this former student who suddenly stood up straight was startled awake by his junior sister's shouting of his nickname. However, he clearly forgot that he had already been expelled from the school. Pu. Senior Olivia, do you think you're still in Teacher Dana's herbology class? Don't worry, no one is punishing you to stand here. We have some private matters to discuss with you. Little bamboo pole, don't call me by my nickname. I thought teacher was scolding me again. I really don't know why Teacher Dana always targets me. Alright, while revealing Kathleen's nickname, she also revealed that big-breasted girls was her publicly acknowledged nickname. Even her teacher called her by this nickname. How much hatred does she have for me? Teacher Dana is already so old, yet she still hasn't gotten married. It wasn't easy for her to get a boyfriend who dumped her because she doesn't have a chest. Naturally, she would get angry when she sees you. Can't you be a little understanding? Cowgirl. Oh, no wonder she keeps staring at my chest. I thought that she was just as weird as those boys. Cough, Alchemist Olivia, I have some matters to discuss with you. The more they chatted, the more passionate they became. Perhaps, they had forgotten that there was a male here. I tried to interrupt them, but... This smell is a powerful troll concoction, why is it labeled as a hair tonic? Ingo took down the bottle from the shelf beside him and his sharp voice was filled with doubt. Using his identity as a gold-rank alchemist to guarantee that regardless of the color or smell, it is definitely a troll regeneration concoction and not a hair tonic. Oh, it isn't completed yet. I considered transplanting the troll's regenerative ability onto one's hair. That way, no matter how stubborn a bald head is, it would still grow hair. In the end. Wait, I can't drink it. For alchemists, experimenting with oneself is always the best way to understand the situation. Relying on his outstanding resistance to medicine as a great alchemist, Ingo opened the bottle cap without hesitation and gulped it down. Ugh! Ingo clutches his stomach and kneels down. Only then did I realize that a patch of black hair fell off. Turns out that he was wearing a wig. Turns out that he wasn't using himself to test the concoction, but to make use of this opportunity to make up for his flaws. This concoction failed. Will he be fine? No, this is a success, but there is a small side effect. There is no need to ask any further. The facts before us have already explained everything. Thick and long hair gushes out from Ingo's bald head. That goblin jumps around in joy. However, very quickly, he falls into trouble. His hair has already reached his feet, but it continues to grow at an insane rate. This design is indeed a success. However, the problem now is how to control the troll's unstoppable regenerative ability. In other words, it can't be stopped. In just a moment, Ingo has turned into a huge ball of hair. His entire body is covered in black hair. The round ball of black hair rolls around on the ground. His eyes and face can no longer be seen anymore. Save me, I can't breathe. He wants to take out the concoction in his robes to save himself, but he can't even stretch his hands out. Too much hair is wrapping around him tightly, and the ends of the hair are already drilling into his nostrils. Alright, if I don't save him soon, he will suffocate to death by his own hair. The cause of his death would be hilarious. I hurriedly pull out my sword, but the moment I cut it, it regenerates. This hair is even harder to deal with than a tentacle monster. However, Olivia has a better idea. She has already run to the laboratory table and takes out 3 bottles of concoction. The bottles dance in the air as the liquid is mixed in the air. Under her outstanding concoction skills, the finished product is formed in a few seconds. Then, she throws it out. Pa. As the concoction splatters and the antidote is used, the effects of the troll's hair-growing concoction are dispelled. I'm saved. Phew. With his hair scattered all over the ground, Ingo collapses onto the ground and sighs over his rescue. However, Pu. Haha, what is this, a chihuahua? Is it just an egg? Gnomes are similar to cats and dogs, they have quite a lot of hair on their bodies. Thus, dwarfs often tease them as short-legged dogs with long hair. This is also the reason why under the effects of the concoction, his hair didn't grow wildly, but his entire body grew hair at the same time. Obviously, Olivia's antidote is as effective as the hair-growing concoction. If all of his hair were to be removed at the same time, a bald dog would be as ugly as it can be. Furthermore, there isn't even a single eyebrow on his bald head. In an instant, he turns from a pitch-black gnome to a white chicken, or even the head of a hairless fishman. It is no wonder that Renee and the others are rolling on the ground in laughter. My hair. I clearly still have 16 strands of hair. They are all gone. Big hair, second hair, third brother. Little 16, you all died so tragically. How can you all leave just like that? How am I supposed to live on? Alright, the bald gnome was bawling his eyes out on the ground. As for the act of naming his 16 hairs, it was really, Pu. I'm sorry, I really wanted to say that I am sad. However, looking at the tears flowing down this bald egg, I can't hold it in anymore. Let me go to the side and laugh. Alright, let us finally return to the main topic. Ingo, who has forcefully calmed himself down, starts to assess the capabilities of his new disciple. Disciple? As a master alchemist who has just entered gold rank, even the principal of the alchemy school isn't able to reach this standard. Ingo only reveals his identity and states that he is willing to accept her as his disciple. Furthermore, he expresses his praise for Olivia's talent, and it is enough for the rookie alchemist Olivia, who has just been expelled from the alchemy school, to acknowledge her as her teacher on the spot. Olivia, who is only 15 years old, is clearly a rookie. She might have potential and creativity, but her lack of basic abilities has destined her to be polished for a few more decades. Bronze rank might be impressive among her peers, but in front of a master alchemist, she is clearly a rookie. Being expelled from the alchemy school made her the laughingstock of the circle. Even her path to further her studies has been severed. The future miracle alchemist is currently just an apprentice with new ideas. Is this the potion that you concocted? This smell should be the barbaric bull potion. Judging from the color, it seems like there are still some improvements to it. What is the increase in strength? After suffering this loss, even a master alchemist doesn't dare to test the potion on his own. I used the blood essence of a tauren to replace the blood essence of a bull in the original formula. The absolute increase in strength is up to 30%. If one were to consume it, one would have 3 times the strength. However, the side effect is that one would grow horns and a tail. After which, one would mysteriously go berserk. I see Ingo's face twitching violently. His hands tremble and he almost smashes the small bottle on the floor. A normal barbaric bull potion would only increase one's strength by 10%. This 300% has the effect of transforming. However, the greater the benefits, the greater the price. After consuming it for a short period of time, it is highly likely that one would not be able to survive. Have you tried it? Yuan, I have tried it with Xiao Bai. Ah, it is my dog. After he went berserk, he smashed through a wall by himself. In the end, he had to recuperate for half a year. Even now, he still thinks that he is a Cerberus, always spitting saliva at others. Breathing fire, this green bottle, is a natural recovery potion, right? But why is it red? I added dragon's beard grass and petrifying lizard potion. This is my masterpiece. While healing wounds, it bestows the user with the ability of petrifying skin, greatly increasing one's defense. A bottle of potion with 2 effects. This is a rare success of mine. Side effects. Ingo is unmoved. He can already faintly sense that this disciple of his is a little unique. I prepared a petrifying dispelling potion as a gift along with this potion. I even pasted a label saying if you do not want to turn into a statue, please do not use this potion when you are alone. However, the weird thing is that it is unable to be sold. It is normal for it to be unable to be sold. If one is not careful, one would turn into stone completely. Who would dare to drink such a thing? Yuan. The taste of milk. Oh, this is the breast enlargement potion that my juniors entrusted me to make. The effects were indeed achieved and it is one of my few successful creations. The moment she speaks, starlight flashes across Renee's eyes. She immediately wants to give it a try. However, looking at the bald head and the bizarre potion, she hesitates. Don't think too much about it. This is one of the reasons why she was expelled from the school. It is indeed able to enlarge one's breasts. However, to maintain its effects, one has to drink a bottle of milk every hour. During that period of time, all the milk in the vicinity of the school was sold out and the entire school was filled with the smell of milk. Hearing this, Renee hesitates. This side effect seems acceptable. Is there anything else? This shouldn't be enough to expel her, right? Suddenly, Kathleen's face flushes red. She moves her mouth close to Renee's ear and whispers softly. It is impossible for the milk to just flow in and out. Once it accumulates to a certain extent, it will burst out. Back then, our teacher Dana ruined her blind date just like this. She doesn't dare to meet anyone even now. Alright, although her voice is really soft, the ears of the people in this room are sharp. At the very least, I am starting to regret hearing it. The miracle alchemist only became famous 10 years later. Obviously, we came too early. The side effects of her product is much greater than the normal effects. However, there are still benefits to being half-baked. At the very least, it is easy to fool her. In this era, the relationship between a master-disciple relationship and a father-son relationship isn't too far apart. Since Ingo is willing to take her in as his disciple, this master-disciple relationship is more practical than anything else. Alright, a certain lineage that has a tradition of killing one's own master is an exception. At the very least, looking at the harmonious relationship between the master-disciple relationship, the cat on my shoulder looks at me with resentment. Stop biting me. Didn't I get killed by my disciple in the end? H, you deserved it. You asked for it. Speaking of which, you actually dare to groom a newcomer. Aren't you afraid that the tradition will act up again? That is two different matters. You killed your teacher because your teacher laid his hands on you. I killed you because you had ill intentions back then. You said that I asked for it, but I think that you are the one who asked for it. Ch, forget it. Let bygones be bygones. Look, this pair of master and disciple resembles the demeanor we had back then. It can't be. I think that Ingo will impart his knowledge seriously. He isn't some petty demoness who would ask an apprentice to complete a mission to please her just to teach magic. No, I am talking about the fact that the disciple will kill her teacher sooner or later. Look, didn't she almost succeed? Look at the things that she invented. I bet that within 3 years, that egghead will either die of anger or poison. Looking at Olivia, who seems to have touched something, after a red mist appears, she lowers her head and apologizes profusely. On the other hand, the tearless old goblin loses the last strand of his hair, his eyelashes, turning into a round egghead. I mumble to myself. I bet, but not for 3 years. I bet that he will die within a year. Then what's the point of betting? Why don't we bet on whether he will die of anger or poison? I think that he will die from an explosion. Thinking back to Ingo's good title as the Explosion Alchemist, if he were to impart his knowledge to the already dangerous Olivia, she will be my subordinate in the future. Could it be that I unknowingly dug a pit for myself and created an extremely dangerous individual? Chapter 104. In the first place, Olivia isn't an Ottoman. She is the child of a merchant from one of the 7 extreme northern countries, Rhodes Kingdom. She specially came here to learn alchemy. As an exchange student, she doesn't have much wealth and her luggage is ridiculously simple. After tossing the potions into her portable space equipment, she brought along her notes and books. After refunding the rent of the shop, she threw the key back to the landlord and turned to leave. By the way, the Donglan Principality is also one of the 7 extreme northern countries. If half of the 7 extreme northern countries' territory is split, it would be the original Mist Country. However, this is equivalent to merging 2 countries and taking away a portion of the territory of the other 2 countries. Under the current conditions, it isn't practical. Olivia is rather happy to be able to leave this country under the tutelage of an alchemist. After all, in the eyes of other countries, the people of the extreme northern countries are mostly barbarians who wear fur. Although it is a good thing that there isn't a world of ice and snow for half a year, she has met with quite a few troubles during her studies. After settling the miracle alchemist Olivia, I met with a little trouble when I was looking for the magic engineering teacher Timlad. However, this isn't the first time I met with such trouble. Timlad became famous around 17 to 18 years later. The current Timlad. Alright, when I saw this brat with a runny nose, I wasn't surprised at all. At the very least, I found him in person. This is much better than finding a historical hero's zygote and ancestor's ancestor. However, I met with a little trouble when I was trying to convince the child's parents. Timlad only has an elder sister whom he depends on. When she returns, I realize that she is actually an old acquaintance. Olivia, Catherine? D.A. Teacher Dana, why are you here? This is my home. I was wondering why you are here. Didn't you all drop out of school? What are you all doing here? Do you have any business with me? The calm-looking Madame Dana is in her early 30s. Her face is beautiful, but there is a hint of bitterness in it. She looks dignified with a straight face, but when I look at her flat curves, I recall the story about breasts. Pu. Alright, it is too impolite to laugh in front of her face. Renee, I will complain to Kelly when I get back. You just have to wait for your etiquette lessons. I laughed as well. Well, at least I didn't spit it out. I still had basic manners for a lady. Hello, Teacher Dana, I am Catherine's night teacher. I need a few alchemists to help me, and Catherine recommended you to me. This is a long-term employment, and I'm afraid that you will lose your job in the academy because of this. However, the remuneration will definitely be generous, and there will be opportunities for you to advance. This is Master Alchemist Ingo Bayar. He is a gold-ranked great alchemist. You can have a chat with him. Since Timlad and his older sister were mutually dependent on each other, It would be impractical to kidnap this little brat by himself. However, as long as I hired this teacher, Timlad would naturally follow me. However, what surprised me was that after hearing what I said, Dana's face lit up, as though she was tempted. However, the next moment, her expression darkened. I'm sorry, I do need a new job, but we're already planning to leave this city. I'm afraid I can't accept your kindness. Go out. Why? She didn't want to tell me at first, but when I asked her, she told me the reason. Actually, the reason is very simple. She felt that this city isn't safe, so she decided to leave. The reason why it isn't safe is because of the humongous creature that can be seen from the window. Nine-headed dragon Emperor Hydra, the humongous body occupies half of the river. That raised dragon head can be seen from a few city districts away. That breath of his might not hurt the entire city, but to those unlucky fellows who get hit by it, they would definitely be smashed into smithereens. This isn't the nine-headed dragon emperor who possesses a portion of the dragon's bloodline in the swamp area. The sea monster Hydra that was left behind from the ancient times is a god pet, and it has long obtained a portion of god power. If I were to rank his bloodline, it wouldn't be much inferior to my double diamond bloodline. When such an existence reaches semigod rank, human semigods of the same level are nothing in his eyes. From the very start, this nine-headed dragon emperor is an almost invincible existence in the mortal world. Even the overly powerful Hydra is restricted, so its passive attitude is obvious. However, if you were to take the initiative to provoke it, who else can you blame for seeking death? This is equivalent to the start of a large-scale war game. A few powerful bosses come out to give a lecture, look for old friends to fight, and furiously grind their existences. However, it is just a simple formality of the story mode. As a newbie, you can just watch the movie and get over it. If you think that you can solo the boss and charge forward and shout evil, die, I want the Dragon Slayer, who else can you blame if you get killed in an instant? At the very least, after understanding the other party's strength, Dasos doesn't intend to fight recklessly. He also doesn't intend to completely anger the owner of the nine-headed dragon, Lady Storm. Looking at his passive way of dealing with the situation and the application letters sent to the various churches, he seems to be waiting for the Order gods to come and solve this problem. Of course, if the nine-headed dragon were to come ashore just like that, Dasos would probably go all out to fight a decisive battle to protect his country. That Hydra obviously knows what he is doing and doesn't intend to escalate the battle, which is why the battle has fallen into a stalemate. On the other hand, the sea folk under his command are putting in more effort. Other than the fact that they have a powerful boss, the main reason for this is because of an accident. In order to put up a front, magic oil lamps were installed along the coastline along the river. What is being burned is the most luxurious item in the human world, the expensive mermaid oil. Mermaids themselves have the reputation of being the beloved of the sea and the royal family of the sea folk. Thus, when the mermaids of the white whale tribe see these oil lamps, it is no different from seeing an ogre cooking human meat pot. They will fight to the death and the battle escalated. Even though the sea folk are still unable to break through the sturdy protective layer and temporary barrier, the Ottoman Empire has already suffered a lot of losses. The appearance of the nine-headed dragon caused the docks to sink into the river. A portion of the citizens managed to escape in time, but a portion of the unlucky ones fell into the river along with their houses, unable to get up again. My uncle's family lives in the docks. My boyfriend's house was hit by the dragon breath and his entire family was obliterated. We intend to leave this sad city. Recently, there are quite a number of people who left the city because of this, and Lady Dana is one of them. However, her luck isn't too good. They have only been dating for 2 weeks and her new boyfriend met with an inexplicable calamity. Most of the wars on the continent are like this. No matter who wins or loses, no matter how righteous the reason for the war is, the ones who suffer first are the powerless citizens. That's great. Oh, I didn't mean to say that the matter regarding your family is great. My apologies, lady, I misspoke. What I meant was that this job requires you to go overseas. Since you intend to leave this city, it might be suitable for you. Is that so? I would like to hear the details. Alright, since the other party also intends to leave this city, This employment contract with generous remuneration easily moves Dana, who is still worrying about her future. When the two rising stars of the future are in my hands, I can't help but feel doubtful. Since I have interfered with their fates, will they still be as important as before? Will they still be able to grow to their original heights? But thinking about it from another perspective, even if I didn't interfere, the fate of the two of them would have already changed. Since the ambush of the seafolk caused Timlad to leave just like that, regardless of whether he becomes a master engineer in the future, there is no longer any basis for the two of them to work together in the future. Perhaps, it is already impossible for magical engineering to appear. Well, what's the point of thinking so much? At the very least, the two of them are good seedlings. Then, I should just maintain my normal state of mind and groom them as a talented newcomer. Since I have introduced Olivia to Ingo, I should introduce little Timlad to Gold Tooth. If the magical machinery dragon is born in the future, it should be more in the style of Goblin Explosion. In the ancient legends of the northern lands, on the days when the mountains are sealed by heavy snow, the coldest few days of the year, in the depths of the snowy mountains where no one is able to reach, would be the day when the demons and monsters of the snowy mountains would come out for a feast. At that time, there would be snowy mountain spirits, snow monsters, snow women, snowmen, and so on. Myths and legends usually have an original form, and the original form of this legend is the frigid nightmare. Nightmare is a nightmare, an unknown demon in a nightmare. The frigid nightmare, in reality, is the collective name for the nameless demons that come from the snowy mountains. They are formless demons, but they are also existences with form. They are just like the aurora unique to the northern lands, ever-changing and colorful. However, when you get close to them, you won't be able to see anything at all. Their legend has been passed down for thousands of years. The people of the northern lands would tell their children to never head to the snowy mountains on a snowy day, until a person who didn't believe it insisted on meeting the nightmares of the snowy mountains on a snowy day. He is the ancestor of the Mist royal family. No one knows what happened in the depths of the snowy mountains, but ever since then, the Aurora Night that caught the attention of the entire continent appeared in the snow country. The Night class has always been the main fighting force of the human race. This is because the various kinds of mounts can allow the weak humans to swiftly grow stronger. A rookie riding a griffin is also a Tier 3 soldier, but even the weakest Aurora Knight is a Tier 4 soldier. This is enough to prove the strength of the frigid nightmare. The frigid nightmare is a spiritual being, so its form isn't fixed. It is precisely because of its ever-changing form that it possesses an extremely strong adaptability and growth potential. The frigid nightmare will grow together with the young knight whom they share a mind with. They will draw nourishment from the soul of the knight. Thus, the contracted beast of every Aurora Knight is different. However, most of the nightmares will choose the form of the snowy mountains demons, such as snowman, snow leopard, etc. Of course, the one that people are most envious of is still the snow lady, even though her fighting strength is rather weak. Alright, there is no need to explain the reason, all men understand. However, in order to facilitate group battles, the three forms of ice unicorn, eagle of storm and armored arctic bear are compulsory for every nightmare. The Aurora Knight that is in charge of a group is able to switch between a flying assault, an accelerated assault and a heavy armored charge within a short few minutes, making it an unmistakable tyrant of the snow. As a top-tier magical creature, Frigid Moor's intelligence is extremely high. The infant Frigid Moor already has the intelligence of a 3 to 4-year-old child, and the adult Frigid Moor is even smarter than a human. Many of the Aurora Knight who is in the form of a snow lady never married, probably because they fell in love with their contracted magical beast. Due to the existence of the bloodline contract, it is easy for the Mist royal family to gain the recognition of Frigid Moor. In the past, the members of the Mist royal family would basically have the identity of an Aurora Knight, and their reputation among the commoners is extremely high. In my generation, there is no doubt that Cavendish is an Aurora Knight. His nightmare is able to freely switch between an ice dragon and an ice behemoth, and it is even in the enviable form of a snow lady. Not only is it powerful, it is also pleasing to the eyes. It really makes one envious. Alright, speaking up to this point, everyone should have already guessed it. The reason why I keep emphasizing on the enviable snow lady is because I don't have one. In fact, I am not even an Aurora Knight. Silver rank is the lowest starting point for this kind of arrogant ice magical creature to acknowledge me. Back then, I was just a bronze rank rookie. By the time I reached the standard of combat strength, we were already in a long war, and it was unrealistic for me to casually change my power form. Thus, I could only look at the envious, jealous, and hateful sisters beside the knight. In my second and third life, the Aurora Knight is already extinct in the continent, and the sudden appearance of one is equivalent to exposing my identity. I am not so foolish as to seek my own death. Now, my power system has already taken shape, and I already have a mental plan for how to develop it in the future. My power system is already complicated enough. Adding another Aurora Knight to it would bring more harm than good. Thus, I can only look at the envious, jealous, and hateful Snow Lady sisters. Yes, Snow Lady sisters. In this period of time, there are only two people who have been acknowledged by Frigid Moor. One of them is a male knight named Eloin. His nightmare form is a snowman, or perhaps it should be called a snow gorilla. Even though it is shockingly ugly, it is agile and possesses immense strength, making it an extremely useful nightmare for chaotic battles. The reason why he was acknowledged, other than the fact that his nightmare was once the companion of my ancestor, it is also because he is one of the only two gold rank knight of the royal knight family. If we were to directly use the nightmare left behind by our ancestor, the advantage is that we would be able to save on the long period of nurturing it. However, the disadvantage is that there would be many problems in the coordination between the knight and the nightmare. It wouldn't be as smooth and easy as if we were to nurture them since they were young. The other newly born Aurora Knight is Renee, who was forcefully pulled up by me using my golden finger. The moment she became a silver rank, those arrogant nightmares who refused to acknowledge anyone took the initiative to contract with her. In the end, she ignored the strongly recommended heavy ice wild boar and snow giant, choosing a snow lady called Savor. But in reality, these heavy monsters are the fastest way to raise her weak battle prowess and worrisome survivability. They are all so ugly. Sister Savor is so beautiful and mature, I would definitely choose her. Alright, should I say, as expected of a princess? The moment those words came out, the huge and burly nightmares were all heartbroken. But at this moment, I approve of this choice. Because, even though the Snow Lady form is weak in close combat, her power of ice and snow is one of the strongest. Creating ice armor and ice weapons is the fastest, and at this moment, what we need the most is this ability. With the help of the Siren Tracy, our group walked directly from the bottom of the river. Even if we were to bump into a fishman patrol team, as a high-tier seafolk, she could easily order those low-tier fishmen to retreat. However, if we were to wear armor and carry heavy weapons, even a mermaid would be unable to float. In order to make it easier for us to move underwater, we chose to travel light. When we reached the underwater base, the gigantic snowman could only give his knight a layer of equipment before preparing for battle. On the other hand, Savor prepared an ice weapon for everyone. Ice magic sword attack power, 10 to 12. If the user is an Aurora Knight, the attack power will be doubled and the quality of the weapon will be raised by 1 rank. The weapon quality is currently Superior Frost Blade. The blade of the sword deals additional 5 ice damage. Inextinguishable ice. The freezing magic of the frigid nightmare causes the hardness of the ice sword to far surpass that of steel. You can use it to clash with adamantine weapons without worry. Bone-piercing chill. Those who touch the magic sword with their skin will receive 1 point of ice damage per second. If the user is wearing the Winter Wolf gloves blessed by Frigid Moor, they will be immune to this damage for half an hour. The Aurora Knight will be immune to this damage. When everyone had a suitable weapon, Shiver, who was panting heavily, began to forge the armor for me. It is the super heavy armor of the Mist Country's unique job, the Avalanche Defender. After putting on this heavy armor, I lightly knock on the huge door-sized shield attached to the armor. I have completely turned into a heavy fortress, becoming the meat shield that we are currently lacking the most. As for the ice armor's additional frost damage, my Titan body had long since ignored this pitiful 1 damage per second. The alarm reverberates throughout the base. Even the slow-witted undead notice our preparations. Looking at the approaching undead knight, zombies, and skeletons, I caress my pale justice lightly and ignite the holy flame on the tip of my sword. Undead who should have long returned to their graves, let me use the holy flame to grant you eternal rest and purification. After saying this standard Holy Night declaration to the undead, I felt inexplicably displeased and muttered to myself. Why does it sound so awkward to say? Forget it, let's just use that charging battle roar. Holy light, that evil is worth fighting. Chapter 105. Give me 10 seconds. With a low roar, I unsheath both of my swords at the same time. Facing the incoming wave of undead, I unhesitatingly charged at the very front. So fast. Killing was an art, and art required the devotion of the body, mind, flesh, and even the soul. On the battlefield, there was no need to think too much. Give up everything and let the instincts of the body rule over everything. The exclamations behind me were no longer important as I fully focused on swinging my swords. As a close combat job, swordsmanship would forever be the foundation of everything, and I was, without a doubt, a master swordsman. In Ashi, where cold weapons were the king, swordsmanship was a skill that brought death. Thousands of years of development and inheritance had given every country and region their own swordsmanship schools. Pure warriors might not have the Holy Knight's gorgeous holy light, nor the arcane knight's profound magic, but they would always stand at the peak of close combat jobs. What they relied on was the sword in their hands and their well-tempered physical bodies. The sword was the king of all weapons. Among warriors, there would always be the most sword users. However, even though everyone could train in swordsmanship, those who could reach a high level were few and far between. If someone's swordsmanship reached a level that mortals couldn't reach, they would receive the title of Sword Saint. This had nothing to do with a person's identity, job, or power level. The only thing that mattered was their swordsmanship. Sword Saint, the saint of the sword, a swordsman who transcended the mortal world. I was a sword saint. Furthermore, I was a wild sword saint without any inheritance and self-taught on the battlefield. Due to my unorthodox background, my swordsmanship wasn't as mystical and varied as the mainstream swordsmanship in this world. I didn't have the noble inheritance of Casolan's soaring eagle sword, so naturally, I couldn't soar and pounce like the soaring sword. I didn't have the unpredictability of Solo's illusory dragon sword, and I couldn't create phantom clones that could create 9 shadows with one sword. As for Orlan's collapsing dragon sword's aura and the endless shockwave of the sword's aura, it really makes me envious. As a holy knight of the Holy Church, I didn't even learn the elegance and beauty of my own mist sword. Compared to the mystical swords that have been passed down in various countries for thousands of years, which only rely on swordsmanship to achieve magical effects, my sword is just a pure art of slaughter. It is the summary of my experiences on the battlefield, simple to the point of being ugly. Even though I was born unorthodox as well, even before I received the inheritance of the Phoenix, Adam's swordsmanship had the elegant and majestic aura of a grandmaster. After receiving the inheritance, his power increased tremendously. His sword was like the soaring of a phoenix, filling the sky with after-images of his sword. Every time he swung his sword, there would be the cries of a phoenix and the faint image of a phoenix. It was extravagant to the extreme. When he fought with all his might, it could be seen from several kilometers away. In fact, he even had the reputation of Red Lotus sword, phoenix clouds fill the sky. As half of his swordsmanship tutor, my swordsmanship was still the simplest basic swordsmanship. What was impressive was that it was just that little bit faster, that little bit more accurate, and that little bit more vicious. Just based on appearance, I couldn't even be considered a grandmaster swordsman, much less a sword saint. If it wasn't for the fact that I had defeated a few sword saints with my swordsmanship, even I wouldn't believe that I had become a sword saint. I started off learning basic swordsmanship. After so many years, I had learned countless famous swordsmanship and grasped many profound meanings. However, the swordsmanship that I was most proficient in and most commonly used was still the ugly and simple basic swordsmanship. Basic swordsmanship, as the name suggested, was a basic battlefield swordsmanship that every swordsman, holy knight, and black knight would learn. Stabbing, hacking, pointing, and sweeping were the basics. Speed, accuracy, and viciousness were the essentials. Strength, eyesight, and agility were the basics. Everyone knew and understood it. If someone said that they could become a sword saint just by using this swordsmanship, they would probably laugh their heads off. The Red Lotus Sword Saint Adam is a world-renowned great sword saint, and is even regarded as the pinnacle of human swordsmanship. However, Adam, this brat, has never been able to win against me in a contest of swordsmanship. The reason? To be honest, I didn't know either. It was probably because I really liked playing with swords. Just by relying on swordsmanship that everyone could learn, I was still the most famous sword saint of my generation. The holy sword in my left hand glowed with a dazzling rainbow light, while the ice magic sword in my right hand glowed with the brilliance of an aurora. The beautiful sword light was like a butterfly spreading its wings. The colorful wings suddenly spread out to form a 3-meter wide rainbow light. Then, I swung it down, causing the entire ground to tremble. At the same time, I had already turned into a destructive hurricane. With the help of the two swords that had their own attributes and the holy light, my ordinary swordsmanship had a little more color to it. The ice magic sword in my left hand, which was intentionally thickened, was edgeless. However, the thick body of the sword made it convenient for me to play with all sorts of tricks. Zombies had boundless strength, thick skin, and didn't fear pain. I slashed off the head with a slash and sliced off the bone marrow. The fulcrum of the body was destroyed, and Sleepless Corpse was completely reduced to a pile of flesh. The general skeleton was like steel, and it didn't fear piercing or sharp weapons. With a sweep of my sword, the huge door-sized sword turned into a huge club. In an instant, the skeleton's body would fall apart, or even be beaten to the ground. Undead Knight. I heard that you are highly skilled in martial arts, and that you also know some dark and undead magic. Hey, what do you mean by falling with a single slash? Why are you so fragile? Little Lionheart was already thousands of times stronger than you when he was just revived. Banshee, I heard that you don't fear physical damage, and that you are skilled in all sorts of weakening spells and curses. You are basically a close combat killer. Curses are a big problem. Eat my profound 7 bitterness sword. Hey, why are you running? Can't you have some dignity as a high-level undead? You are throwing the face of a banshee. Look at the banshee queen on your shoulder, she can't even bear to look at you. Knock, tap, smash, slash. Heavy hammer, rapier, club, two-handed blade. Even though it was a heavy and clumsy sword, I was able to use it in countless ways. My accumulated swordsmanship foundation allowed me to casually turn the huge sword into a sure-kill sword that targeted the opponent's weakness. Since the start of the battle, at least one opponent would fall with every slash, and my armor hadn't even taken a single hit. This was just the ice sword in my right hand. The sacred sword in my left hand was even simpler. After I infused sufficient holy light into the sacred sword, Judgment of Justice began to announce the end of the undead. Judgment of Justice. Activate the power of judgment bestowed by the soul gem. After the sacred sword strikes a chaos being, it will be judged. If the other party doesn't pass the judgment, they will be completely destroyed. Duration: 10 minutes. Number of uses per day: 3 as long as they were to be struck. Even if it was just a slight graze from the wind of the sword, the weak undead would be reduced to dust. After realizing that this special effect was very effective against undead, and that the undead's counterattack was laughably weak, the sword in my left hand, which was originally mainly used for defense, started to be used for offense as well. The efficiency of my killing instantly doubled. My heavy ice armor was roughly the weight of a thick chain mail. My seemingly ordinary physical body actually possessed the strength of 1,000 kilograms. Even though I was wearing a thick armor, I was still able to dance around the battlefield like a paladin. But in reality, it was all for naught. Needless to say, I wasn't even able to receive a single blow from the enemy, not to mention getting injured by my defense. I finally realized that I had accidentally made a mistake. Comparing the strength of those fellows in Sulphur Mountain City to the newly born undead in front of me was like comparing a kindergarten kid to a super soldier who had been through hundreds of battles. Both of them were humans, but the difference between them was like the difference between heaven and earth. If I were to use the strength of a special forces soldier to deal with a kid, I reckon that it would be a one-sided massacre. Just as I was killing excitedly, the area in front of me suddenly cleared up. There were no longer any enemies around me. Thus, making use of this opportunity, I gripped the sword with my left hand in a reverse grip and my right hand in a straight grip. Slow, foolish. Do you think that you can compete with me like this? Dream on. After a furious roar, both of my swords burst forth at the same time. Sword light swirled around me and my entire body started to spin, turning into a tornado of death. As the two swords spun, the whirlpool filled with sword energy started to overflow. Following which, the excess and rampaging sword energy started to spread and the rapidly spinning blades drove the sword energy to spin. Finally, my entire body turned into a formless and fatal sword energy storm. Ding! Congratulations for comprehending the legend rank common swordsmanship secret, Blade Storm. Using this skill, you will turn into a high-speed spinning storm of swords. The rapidly spinning blades and sword energy will deal heavy damage to all enemy ground troops in the vicinity. Under the influence of Blade Storm, you won't feel pity, regret, or fear. Other than death, there is nothing that can stop you. Prerequisites: 20 strength, 10 agility, 15 stamina. Those who have motion sickness, boat sickness, and low agility should use it with caution. I won't tell you that the invincible great sword Saint Hodel was killed by a group of kobolds while vomiting because he got too dizzy from spinning. Although I said that I comprehended it, in reality, it is just a memory. Swordsmanship can be used as long as the basic stats are up to standard. I have already comprehended countless swordsmanship along the way. There is a reason why Blade Storm is the Sword Saint's favorite secret. It has a wide attack range, allowing the swordsman to kill a large number of enemies in one go. It is the best method to deal with encirclement. Of course, its weakness is that it can't be stopped after using it. Furthermore, the trajectory of the movements will become very obvious. If I meet a strong opponent, this drilling top can easily become a target. At this moment, the undead that come into contact with the Blade Storm are basically being attacked by two swords at the same time. It is already very strong to be able to last for 2 seconds. As I move, not a single undead can escape. The Blade Storm starts to devour everything. When I finally stop, the area in front of me is already wide open. There are only hundreds of undead corpses on the ground. Ha ha ha, I am already invincible. Damn, where did this thing come from? Looking at the new opponent, I, who was just getting carried away, turns around and runs without hesitation. The reason? The newly arrived undead army has dragged over high-level siege cannons. Not to mention, the floating battleships in the distance are slowly starting to move and the heavy magic cannons are already starting to aim. As long as I am hit by one of the cannons, I will definitely be smashed into smithereens. I can reincarnate once again. The rewards are really not bad. In just a short while, this great experience gift pack has allowed me to level up once again. Just now, the system seems to have notified me that I have received some spoils of war. However, now is obviously not the time to organize the rewards. Just as I return to my teammates, I realize that everyone is looking at me as if I am a monster. After all, I only said that I would charge out to attract the enemy's firepower for 10 seconds. However, in the end, not only did I go out for a few minutes, I even single-handedly cleared out the undead on the pier. I'm sorry, they are really too weak. It was too easy for me to kill them, so I didn't leave any for you. Why are you all looking at me like that? Oh, didn't I say that I am a sword saint? Alright, they are shaking their heads in unison. Only Kelly, who already knew about it, smiles and nods her head slightly. On the other hand, Renee has a look of shock, regret, and happiness on her face. As expected, his usual sloppy and unreliable personality isn't the truth. The true Holy Knight Roland is still terrifyingly strong. I am still far from his level. Originally, she was delighted that she was able to become an Aurora Knight. She was even more delighted that she seems to possess the strength to suppress the current bronze rank teacher. However, from the looks of it now, even though she doesn't know why he has fallen into a state of decline, the legendary Holy Knight Roland is still a legend. Just his swordsmanship alone is enough for him to dominate the world. A bronze rank Holy Knight Sword Saint. This is too inconceivable. The other new knight retainer, Catherine, is also stunned. She was originally dissatisfied with her teacher's strength, but from the looks of it now, not only is he more than capable of teaching her, he is even capable of teaching her father. After all, swordsmanship requires a large amount of practice, basic abilities, and the accumulation of practical experience. A holy knight spends most of his time focusing on holy light and divine arts. For a sword saint to emerge from a third-rate holy knight is already inconceivable. Not to mention, the fact that a low-rank holy knight has become a sword saint goes against all common sense. As long as your talent in magic is half of your talent in swordsmanship, you won't become the shame of all mags, the mage heavy cannon tower. On the other hand, the black cat on my shoulder, as usual, is unable to utter anything decent. As usual, I ignore it. However, this wasn't the time for idle chatter. The mage towers that served as the base's defense began to flash, and on the tallest mage tower, a pitch-black figure stood up. That familiar skeleton that was overflowing with death magic made me sigh in admiration. It's actually another one that's running around naked. Are liches allowed to be naked? How uncivilized, how indecent. The undead's culture is just this corrupted. If this was Sulphur Mountain City, you would have long been beaten up by the town security. What's even more dangerous is the airship that is floating in mid-air. The pitch-black magic heavy cannons that are docked at the port have already begun to charge. As for me, I am completely unmoved. Pack. With a snap of my fingers, 2 heavy cannons open fire at the same time. However, boom. Boom. The airship's target isn't us. 2 of the mage towers in the base are shot at the same time. One of them even has a hole in the middle and starts to collapse. I've never seen such a lousy cannoneer. Stupid shorty over there, raise the angle by 10 degrees and tilt left by 30 degrees. The loud voice of the ace hunter, Lowens, could be heard in mid-air. From his proud commanding, it seemed like he was the one who shot the cannon that destroyed the tower just now. Idiot, I was aiming at the Lich just now. Then you missed even more. You hit the wrong mage tower. Raise the angle by 40 degrees and tilt right by 30 degrees. At the same time, Diana and Kolos appear on 2 separate airships. Look, we attracted the enemy's attention and allowed the 2 strongest mags to sneak onto the airship with the shorties who specialize in cannons. Our plan to take over the 2 airships at the port and use them as our fighting force has been a great success. I told you that we're already invincible. Looks like I really can't say that. A few warehouses in the base are opened and 4 identical airships start to float up. It seems like our plan isn't complete enough. After all, airships aren't ships. Since they can fly, they can easily hide in the base. Those above, focus on dealing with the airships. Leave the Lich to us. Allowing the mags to do as they please is equivalent to courting death. Looking at the Lich who is being protected by a group of undead knights, the Yeti Knight who acts as a meat shield has already charged to the very front. The knight fearlessly starts to charge, so how could I possibly fall behind? Chapter 106. Know yourself, know your enemy, and you will never be defeated. Although this isn't a new maxim, it is a principle that I have always believed in war. If you don't even know how much strength the enemy has, then you shouldn't have fought in the first place. In a temple, the one who calculates more wins, the one who calculates less wins, not to mention the one who calculates nothing. The outcome of a negotiation is usually decided by the situation of the 2 parties before the negotiation. I also believe that the outcome of a war will be decided before the start of the war. A war without benefits and no chance of victory is undesirable. Due to the sudden appearance of the 9-headed dragon emperor, the Ottoman Empire and the Sea Folk are in a stalemate. However, a stalemate is always short-lived. I expect that the situation will change very soon. No matter which side gains the upper hand, it won't be a good thing for me and Donglan. If the Ottoman Empire wins, Daesos's position will be stabilized. Based on his personality, he will most likely cause some trouble. If the Sea Folk Empire wins, I'm afraid that this city will no longer belong to humans. Just like the legendary underwater city of Yasuo, it is not impossible for it to completely sink into the water. Thus, I make use of this stalemate to conquer this underwater base and use it as a base to obtain the airship technology and samples. This way, I will be able to reap some benefits. If the situation turns bad, I will be able to escape. The contract can be completed at any moment. There isn't much time left. There is only one chance. If the first attack fails, then it will be troublesome the next time. With the help of the Queen of Banshees, it isn't difficult for a few low-tier undead to sneak in. I have already done enough scouting and preparations beforehand. The structure of this base isn't complicated. The dock area is where the airships are being constructed, the mage area is where the mags and craftsmen live, and the 6 mage towers are the most dangerous defensive structures here. There is a squadron of White Wolf guards stationed here. There are around 300 of them. The only ones who can fight are the mags. Based on the usual 10:1 conversion rate, there are around 30 undead who are qualified to become undead knight. As for the banshees, liches, and other high-level undead who possess silver rank and intelligence upon awakening, the conversion rate is even lower. I don't think it will exceed the number of undead knight. In other words, there shouldn't be more than 100 high-level undead. However, judging from the current situation, there were more than 100 Death Knight squad members, so there was only one possibility for such a high conversion rate. Should that Prince Calasin have been secretly practicing necromancy since he was a human? A prince of a kingdom is actually a necromancer above the saint level. Looks like he's plotting something big. Very quickly, the scouts discovered a few 100-man pits. It seemed that after realizing that they were isolated, they had started a massacre in order to reduce the consumption of food. Then, seeing that the situation was not right and that they would not be able to connect to the outside world in a short period of time, Calasin decided to reveal his identity as a necromancer. He turned himself into a Lich and his subordinates into undead. He even had the help of undead workers who did not sleep at all, allowing the construction to proceed ahead of schedule. In fact, during the scouts' investigation, they had already discovered the soul summoning tower and the undead converter that could convert the living into undead. However, they weren't sure if they were built secretly or after the isolation. This evil device that could convert the living into brainless low-level undead amidst endless pain was definitely the most evil of all evil. The soul summoning tower was a taboo even in Shiluor. After all, although this device could convert undead on a large scale, no matter what went into it, it would only turn out to be cannon fodder like skeletons and zombies. Not only that, these mass-produced undead were naturally lacking, making it difficult for them to grow and evolve, not to mention awakening into intelligent high-level undead. Shiluor wasn't completely devoid of living residents, although most of them were slaves or vassals. Not to mention, there were dozens of undead masters who could satisfy all kinds of conversion requirements. This highly effective but low-quality conversion method was only suitable for massacring entire cities in times of war to convert cannon fodder. The several 100-man pits that were equivalent to a massacre had already touched the bottom line of the divine arts. A massacre and this infamous soul-summoning tower, Prince Calasin's actions could no longer be described as excessive. This also gave the law job class a reason to crusade against Calasin. Otherwise, I would have to think of another way to fill in the loopholes that Kolos and the others had left behind. Right now, the enemy's main fighting force was probably the brainless skeletons and zombies that the blacksmiths and their family members had converted into. Judging from the sheer number of them, the soul-summoning tower, which was viewed as a taboo, was indeed very powerful. Calasin had indeed done it without any limits to make the best use of everything. My intelligence work was already quite good, but it was impossible to take every possibility into account on the battlefield. What was unexpected was that the enemy's progress was far too fast. There were already 4 light assault airships that had entered the storage. Boom. Boom. Cannons boomed in midair, thick smoke billowed, and metal shards and wooden planks fell from the sky. The cannons between airships of the same type were even more brutal and intense. Vulture Type 1 assault airship. Its original form was a small gunship used for surface warfare, and it was also the prototype of the floating airship fleet. It had a magically charged main cannon, 2 engineering cannons, and 2 harpoon cannons. These were all excellent weapons originally used for surface warfare. It was designed to carry 30 people, but it could even carry 5 or 6 people. The current floating airships were still at the stage of imitating surface ships. It was far from the domineering might of the Cloud Army that would soar into the sky 10 years later. In fact, in my eyes, even 2 legend rank mags would be able to take it down. Even though it wasn't too strong, it was still an extremely important prototype airship. The floating turbine system on it, as well as the ship's aerial control system, were the most classic initial models. At the same time, the word initial also meant that its structure was simple, making it easy to analyze and imitate. Thus, even if the Ottoman Empire started to sell some low-tier floating airships in the future, this original Vulture would never be sold. Due to the appearance of the ambush, we were now facing a bitter battle of 2 against 4. Originally, we, who had lost in terms of the number of ships, would definitely be at a disadvantage in terms of manpower. However, with the addition of the goblin engineers that Ingo brought, compared to the slow-witted newborn undead, our crew members are much more capable. On the other hand, the ace hunter Lomans, who had been playing with guns for more than 200 years, displayed astonishing skills in operating a cannon that was extremely similar to it. Not only was he able to hit the target with his main cannon, he even had the spare time to calculate the angle of the other ship's main cannon. Amidst his curses, he gave orders to the other warship. On the other hand, even though the number of warships on the other side had doubled, their crew members weren't able to bring out the full potential of the warship. The newborn undead were still very weak. Kalishin's undead army lacked a solid foundation, and the intelligent undead in his hands were extremely limited. Even if they were to be controlled by his necromancy, there would probably be quite a number of them who harbored hatred in their hearts. After all, to most of the ordinary humans who believed in the gods of order, they would rather die and enter the divine realm than become bloodthirsty undead that was viewed as an enemy by the world. There weren't many trustworthy people that he could use. Low-tier skeletons could be used as laborious, but it was too much for them to be used as crew members that required skills. On the other side's warship, there was only 1 or 2 necromancers and 2 middle-tier undead who could barely speak. Then, they used a bunch of skeletons and zombies as sailors. The necromancer who was the captain was most likely a mage in the past. As he fought, he forgot to fire his cannon. Or perhaps, when he realized that he couldn't hit the target no matter how hard he tried, he jumped onto the deck and started casting his spells. However, the fact that the other party was a mage and was attacking independently reminded Kolos. Thus, the sky was filled with thunderstorms and the cannons and thunder roared at the same time. As a legendary tier great druid, the interference of Crosa causes the balance of the aerial battle to tip over completely. Lightning strikes furiously and the other party's airship is struck by lightning repeatedly. Even the sails of the airship are set ablaze and smoke is rising from the deck. In the Elven Kingdom, the Storm Druid was a turret job that was comparable to a fire mage. When he went all out, it was as if he had multiple main cannons. Not only would his firepower be doubled, the accuracy of a mage's spells would be far superior to a heavy cannon, which required a large amount of calculations. In just a short period of time, Kolos and Lomans's warship was actually suppressing the other 4 warships on the other side. Both sides continuously fired their cannons. Thunderstorms and death spells were fired back and forth. The flames and explosions of the main cannons tore through the sky, and the smoke of the heavy cannon began to fill the air. Crash. Finally, the first casualty appeared. Heavy cannons and thunderstorms simultaneously struck the Vulture warship with the number 3 on its deck. It was the first warship to break apart. Its body split open from the middle, and the rear half of the warship exploded into sparks. The front half of the warship began to fall. When the third warship exploded in midair, the situation became 2 against 3. The light of victory appeared on our side. However, it was a pity that we rejoiced too early. The other side's magic support and the Lich weren't just for show. Suddenly, the Lich Kalishin's mage tower also exploded with an intense red light. A gigantic flame blast with a crimson glow shot out. The fireball, which was filled with fire magic, was huge and fast. It was impossible to block it. Boom. Even though Kolos's thunderstorm attempted to block it, the gigantic fireball still struck the first warship that Diana was on. Fire magic was extremely powerful. Even the strategic-level flame blast that Kalishin cast through the Mage Tower's amplification was not something that Kolos's thunderstorm could compare to. The next moment, the same misfortune as the third warship happened to its sister warship. The first warship's silence was even more direct than its sister's, and it immediately began to break apart in the explosion. Jump off the ship. The gnome engineers unhesitatingly began to jump off the ship. Their good habit of always being prepared for explosions and preparing an escape route saved them. After giving the order to abandon the ship, numerous white parachutes appeared in the air. These were the gnome parachutes that were hung on the side of the ship. But unfortunately, as a melee holy knight who had been wearing heavy armor for a long time, Diana was basically useless in aerial combat. Ever since she successfully took over the warship, she became nothing more than a decoration. However, she was overjoyed to find the Ottoman specialties, the micellar mithril alloy full-body armor, in the Vulture assault airship. This was a rare item that definitely couldn't be found on the market. Thinking about how she was currently in battle, she unhesitatingly put it on. Alright, we could understand the desire of a melee knight who had been acting as a meat shield for a long time to have good armor. However, a simple and crude parachute would definitely be unable to carry a fully armored, heavily armored holy knight. The screaming legend-ranked holy knight used her own example to explain that even a holy knight needed to add a point of intelligence. Even if it would be useless in battle, dying from stupidity would be far too unsightly. As previously mentioned, although the micellar mithril alloy contained elements of mithril, most of it was an alloy of rare and precious metals. Although its defense and mana capacity were excellent, it was far too heavy. Not even the Ottoman war horses that were fully equipped with heavy armor would be able to carry it. This forcefully turned the White Wolf Guards into light cavalry. The heavily armored infantry's full-body armor had even better defense, but it was also naturally ridiculously heavy. If a can of apple was thrown down from a height of more than 100 meters, regardless of whether the can would shatter into pieces or not, the apple would definitely turn into fruit jam. And if Diana really fell down, no matter if she was a legend-ranked knight or something else, she would instantly turn into elf jam amidst the shards of armor. With her legend-ranked strength, if she didn't wear this full-body armor, she could still think of a way to survive. But now, the full-body armor was just like a metal cage. No matter how regretful she was, there was nothing she could do. Moon Knight Diana died in AD 1897. Cause of death: stealing and being too stupid. Big foolish lass, why are you so stupid? She could already imagine what those fellows with bad habits would write on their goals. Save me. It's too embarrassing to die like this. I haven't completed my life's goal yet. My savings are hidden in my boots. Please help me pass them to Victoria, and, Lord Patricia, please guide me on the path. I repent my sins to the holy light. Lord Wumianzi, I haven't seen your great achievements yet. I haven't dated anyone before, I don't want to die. Lord Wumianzi, save me. Alright, I had already started to close my eyes to pray. But suddenly, my body felt light and the speed of my descent slowed down. Then, it seemed to have stopped. Fool. You still remember to call for me to save you, at least you aren't completely hopeless. When she opened her eyes, she saw that a familiar person was pulling her. Golden wings were spread out, and the fiery halo on his head was burning fiercely. That legendary posture made Diana think of a certain legend. Angel. Am I already dead? Lord, why are you here as well? Are you dead as well? Are you actually an angel? The legend-ranked knight, who was scared to death, had a panicked expression on her face. The moment she opened her mouth, she completely exposed her adorable nature beneath her mature exterior. In the legends, angels are indeed the ones who receive the souls of the dead. But, when she opened her mouth, why did I feel so awkward? I take back what I said just now. As expected, you are hopeless. What do you mean by you are here as well? I have never been able to go to heaven in my life. With a flap of my wings, I flew in an arc, dodging the storm arrows and fireballs shot at me from the mage tower in the distance. When we get back, I will have a good talk with you about that ridiculous confession before death. If the three true gods really heard it, with a believer like you, they might even be amused by you. But for now, let's work together to deal with some serious matters. While gliding, I looked down and saw that the battle below had already turned into a mess. The battle on the ground was much crueler than in the air. The other party's advantage in numbers was much more obvious. Other than the boundless and brainless cannon fodder, the other party's main force was obviously the Death Knight that was transformed from the White Wolf Guard. Most of the revived White Wolf Guard were still in a state of confusion after just awakening. They had not regained enough intelligence and were unable to use dark magic and their natural talents. It would be a stretch to call them Death Knight, but they were more like slightly stronger zombie warriors. Even so, they were still difficult to deal with. There was no other reason. As the Imperial Guards of the Ottoman Empire, the equipment of the White Wolf Guard was just too good. The micellar critical sword carried a crimson brilliance. The ripple-shaped blade seemed to be howling constantly. The exquisite swords of the Donglan Royal Knight were unable to withstand a single blow from it. Furthermore, the micellar explosive javelins were weapons of mass destruction. Every time they were thrown, a huge crater would be blasted open. If one was not careful, they might die in their hands. What was fortunate was that their intelligence wasn't high at the moment. In the chaotic battle, there were many accidental injuries. When the javelins were thrown out, the ones who were blasted away were basically their own cannon fodder. This infuriated the Death Knight and the Lich. Due to Prince Kalishin's identity as a necromancer, the Death Knight was several times more than expected. When I flew into the air, there was only the Snowman Knight, a powerful meat shield on the ground. Coupled with the support of the Mage Tower's magic, the battle below fell into a stalemate. It was fortunate that Beifong and Kageo were around. Against the threatening explosive javelins, their arrows were able to easily detonate them in advance, preventing us from suffering heavy losses. Even though the battle on the ground was getting more and more difficult, I didn't have any intentions of interfering. After all, I had to take the initiative in a battle. I didn't have much time to transform, so I had to maximize my mobility. As for the battle on the ground, looking at the time, it was about time. Rumble. Rumble. As expected, very quickly, an explosion not too far away attracted the attention of everyone. The hidden chess pieces that I had arranged were indeed effective. As expected, it would be a waste to leave Grim and Ingo on the battlefield. It would be more suitable for them to wreak havoc behind the enemy's back. Yes, since we have the other party's intelligence, it would be foolish for us to fight them head-on. We are lacking in numbers, but we have plenty of experts, making it suitable for small-scale battles. From the very start, I had split my manpower into several small teams. Kolos and Diana were the first and second team to seize the ships. The explosive maniac Grim and Ingo were the first team to destroy the explosions at the enemy's back. Following the explosion, the arcane radiance of several mage towers began to extinguish. Then, due to the poor connection between the two towers, they flickered in and out of existence. Finally, they completely dimmed. It was evident that Clint and the others had completed the target of my explosion. The energy pool of this base had been successfully destroyed, and the mage towers that had lost their energy supply were beginning to collapse. Before the backup energy source and the small-scale energy source within the mage towers are activated, let's complete our primary objective. The primary objective of this battle? It's to suppress Kalishin himself. Fighting a war of attrition against the undead army is the most foolish choice. The boundless and never-ending sea of undead has no concept of fatigue or morale. They are always able to exhaust the stamina and blood of their opponents in a war of attrition. Against such an army, decapitation is the best choice. As long as the undead lord falls, his army would become meaningless and might even disintegrate on its own. At this moment, the mage towers are temporarily deactivated and I can fly again. Furthermore, I am bringing along a silly lass as my trump card. I would be a fool if I didn't go straight to the main objective and find trouble with the undead lord. Spreading open my golden wings, I glide in the sky, leaving a trail of golden light wherever I pass by. As for the weight in my hands, my 20 points of basic strength allowed the female knight in my right hand to bear the weight. Boom. However, it is evident that my flying skills are still lacking. In a moment of carelessness, I knock into the sail of the number 6 assault airship. I am fine, but a large hole in the shape of a female elf appears on the sail. I casually cut off the mast. Looking at the chaos on the enemy's airship, I pull it up again. Lomans didn't miss this opportunity. Taking advantage of the fact that the enemy has stopped moving, he accurately shoots a bullet at the ammunition warehouse, causing number 6 to explode into sparks. The situation in the sky has become 1 against 2. The side with fewer numbers has the legend rank Druil and an ace archer, so I don't have to worry about the situation in the sky anymore. Ayo, I'm sorry, I didn't see it. Looking at Diana, who was seeing stars, I whispered apologetically. You must have done it on purpose. No, I really didn't mean it before. But this time, I did it on purpose. Arth. Looking at my loosened right hand and the screaming Diana below, I smiled gleefully. This time, I really did loosen my grip on purpose, and it seems that my aim was quite accurate. Boom. The pitiful number 5 deck is smashed through. The Lich that I had my eyes on is smashed into minced meat by the female knight. The shockingly heavy Diana's momentum doesn't decrease at all, and she actually falls directly to the 2nd floor. Diana, I will give you 2 minutes. Clear all the high-level undead on this ship. However, what is strange is that I didn't hear the expected sounds of killing. Instead, after a series of dong 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 footsteps, Diana runs up to the deck from the lower floor. Lord, hurry and bring me away. This ship is about to explode. All right, I trust her words. If you have any doubts, just say it on the way. As expected, just as I carried her and flew for a short distance, I heard the sound of an explosion behind me. Boom. This explosion is even louder than the previous one. It is obvious that the ammunition warehouse exploded together with something else. What happened? You fell on the ammunition warehouse? Why have I been so unlucky recently? Diana, who was muttering to herself, only regains her senses after hearing my question. When I was on the 2nd floor, I smashed an undead knight to death. From the captain's hat, it should be the captain. In the end, I actually fell straight to the 3rd floor, right into the engine room, and ended up landing on the main engine. The engine is spoiled. If the engine is spoiled, it would explode immediately. Looks like the stability of this airship is really bad. It's not that. Diana scowls, but there is an embarrassed red blush on her face. Just as I stood up, I touched a button with a red skull on it. When I stood up, I accidentally pressed it. Alright, since we are all from Sulphur Mountain City, it is enough for me to say this much. Everyone knows about the bad habit of the goblin engineers to leave a red skull on them, and everyone knows what that skull represents. Smashing 2 high-level undead to death, and just touching the self-destruct button when I stood up? This luck. Choosing you as my bodyguard is indeed the right choice. What a good lightning rod of bad luck. No wonder I felt that my luck has been good recently. Looks like with the help of the Star of Comet, all my bad luck has been absorbed by you. I nod my head in satisfaction. On the other hand, Diana's face is filled with helplessness and confusion. However, there isn't any time for me to sigh or explain. At the top of the tallest mage tower, under the protection of a group of undead knight, Kalishin is summoning burst flames. His target is obviously us, who are threatening him. Darsos, you cursed bastard. You traitors, I, Kalishin, should be the next Ottoman emperor. Alright, this Lich still thinks that we are Dasos's men, but there is no need for me to explain. Then, your majesty, let me send you on your way. Suddenly, the voice of the Queen of Banshees rings in my ears. He is actually an old acquaintance. Look at the ring on his hand. Looking carefully, I notice the celestial emblem on the Lich's right hand. I immediately fly into a rage. Darned celestial tower, to think that they would have their men here as well. I am not talking about that. Look at the emblem of a cross between a magic book and a magic staff on his left pinky ring. He should be my nominal disciple, your junior. Even if he is my junior, is there a difference? No, I am just reminding you to be careful. My nominal disciples aren't easy to deal with. Every one of them has at least a few underhanded moves and trump cards. Don't treat him as an ordinary Lich. Chapter 107. Kalishin. Mean, the blood-related uncle of the current Emperor Dasos. Mean and the younger brother of the previous Emperor Crovan. Mean from the same mother. As a mage, not only was he the head of the court mags, he was also one of the top 3 generals in the Ottoman military. In his later years, the old emperor even handed over the air fleet, an important weapon of the country, to him. But in reality, Kalashin had never been convinced by his elder brother. He helped Crovan in the battle for the throne of the previous generation because they were born from the same mother. If he didn't help his blood-related elder brother to seize the throne, he would be killed by the other princes. But in reality, as the number 1 genius of the previous royal family, his dream of becoming the emperor had never been extinguished. In fact, in order to obtain power, he hid his identity when he was young and went to the terrifying Shiluor Empire to learn necromancy. He even became the disciple of the 3rd senator, the Queen of Banshees, Heloise, and specialized in death magic. Yes, on the surface, he was a legend-rank fire mage, but in reality, he was also a saint-rank necromancer. It wasn't without reason that necromancers were viewed as evil. Other than the drawbacks of disturbing the dead, this kind of evil magic could increase its power by sacrificing the living and devouring the flesh, blood, and souls. Along with the crazy increase in power, one's mind would often lag behind and be corroded by the power that exceeded one's capacity, causing changes in all aspects. For example, necromancers were famous for not treating humans as humans. The further they progressed, the more indifferent they became to life and death. Demon warlocks and soul reapers, on the other hand, the more inhuman they became, drooling at the sight of the souls of others. Blood mags, on the other hand, were more vampiric than vampires when they reached the bloodthirsty stage. They looked at humans as if they were looking at food. The words of evil priests who obtained power from the evil gods would become more and more fanatical as they progressed, losing their sense of self and becoming the puppet of the evil gods. Of course, you could also take it one step at a time and slowly digest it, completely transforming this unorthodox power into a magic sword in your hand instead of being controlled by the magic sword. However, for some people, if they wanted to take it one step at a time, why would they need to practice evil magic? The side effects of having their personality affected were completely acceptable. The most alluring part of these non-mainstream magic spells was that it was very easy to achieve immortality, although this immortality would most likely require an additional price. For example, for necromancers, if they didn't meet with accidents, even if they weren't skilled enough to become a Lich, it wouldn't be difficult for them to transform into a skeleton mage or Lich. For humans who fear death and the unknown, the temptation of immortality is sometimes hard to resist, especially for ambitious people who yearn for the peak. Of course, it was also possible to obtain immortality if one cultivated to the peak through normal means, such as Valkyrie, oracles, and divine pets. However, there was still a price to pay for such immortality. Although it seemed very noble and high-class, in reality, they would become servants and thugs of the gods. Kalashin, who had already achieved immortality, had always been ambitious. However, it was a pity that although his personal strength was negligible, his brother Crow had deep attainments in politics and military affairs. Under his governance, the strength of the Ottoman Empire was rising day by day. Heroes are born in troubled times. If the world was not chaotic and the country was stable, there wouldn't be much soil for trouble. Naturally, these ambitious people had to hide their fox tails and pretend to be loyal and capable ministers. Thus, even though Kalashin was a saint-rank archmage, not only did he pretend to be a legend rank, he even groomed a large number of loyal subordinates during his many years in the military. He controlled close to 30% of the White Wolf Guards, waiting for a flaw to appear in Crow's governance. He had long seen through his nephew Daesos's ill intentions, but he still helped him cover it up. As long as Daesos makes his move, it might be the day that he would fish in troubled waters and rise to power. Fortunately, or perhaps unfortunately, Kalashin was too outstanding in pretending to be a loyal minister. Or perhaps Crow had already seen through his younger brother's ambitions and was worried that there would be problems when he succeeded the throne. Thus, he allowed Kalashin to accept the position of the commander-in-chief of the underwater base. After discovering the greatest trump card of the Ottoman Empire, how could he let it slip by? Thus, when Daesos made his move, this ambitious uncle was trapped in the base instead, missing out on a golden opportunity. Alright, let's not talk about how this ambitious and unlucky fellow was eliminated for such a laughable reason. What we are facing now is the final rage of an ambitious schemer who had been preparing for decades. Die. The moment I raise my staff, the pitch-black power of death morphs into a ghostly finger and shoots towards me. Instantaneous Death's Finger? It can't be. Death's Finger is an 8-circle necromancy spell that only legend-rank necromancers are able to grasp. To instantaneously cast it, the difficulty would be raised by at least 2 circles. This isn't something that a saint-rank necromancer would be able to do. You are still thinking about this even when death is at your doorstep, seeking your own death. Actually, if this Death's Finger were to be directed at Diana, even a legend-rank magic-resistant female knight would shiver in fear. However, if it were to be directed at me, perfect courage, immune to fear-type, death-type magic, and talents, the user will always be in a state of high fighting spirit. This effect can be shared with 3 party members. The complete version of Pale Justice is indeed worthy of being the holy light sacred sword of the Order faction. As expected of a Saint Knight who is an undead slayer, it is a perfect counter to necromancers. High-circle necromancy spells have a lot of death-type and fear-type effects, but he is immune to these 2 effects. He really doesn't give necromancers any chance of survival. As expected, when Death's Finger hits me, the sacred sword that is enveloped in golden holy light suddenly shines and the pitch-black power of death starts to dissipate. However, even after the death effect of this 8-circle spell is dispelled, the shockwave from the power of death is still not something that a bronze-rank rookie can withstand. The ice armor immediately shatters and the shockwave sends me flying. I can't help but break out in cold sweat. If it wasn't for the ice armor, with my current weak physical body, I might have died on the spot. Life withering. Alright, this time it isn't an instantaneous spell. However, to be able to cast a 9-circle saint-rank spell so calmly, it is too ridiculous. How is this a saint-rank mage? This is practically a myth-rank mage. Go. I share the aura of perfect courage with her just in time so that the breath of death that evaporates all the water in the area and absorbs the power of life doesn't have an instant death effect. However, even so, Diana is still sent flying and spits out blood. This time, the outstanding defense of the full body armor saves her. The Licker's choice of this spell is really smart. With both the evaporation damage and the death effect, Diana's magic-resistant skin isn't of much use. The Dark King's Breath of Death. That is a semigod equipment. This is the treasure of an undead mage. The black cat on my shoulder exclaims in shock and explains the reason behind it. With this weapon that belonged to an ancient semigod undead emperor, Calisin is able to throw out high-circle instant death spells with such powerful effects. I have already spread my wings and soared into the sky to avoid being locked on by the enemy's spells. Looking around, I still feel that the situation is far from good. Calisin's guards have already caught up to us. The Death Knight's explosive spears are still a huge problem. If we don't end this battle quickly, not only will our plan to decapitate the leader fail, both Diana and I might die here. Looking at Diana, who is struggling to get up, I know that the 9-circle spell that was buffed by the semigod equipment must have injured her quite badly. Damn it, this semigod equipment is too ridiculous. How can it cast high-circle spells so quickly? Is there no way to counter it? Think, there are no perfect people in this world. Hurry up and think. Breath of Death. This name should be used to strengthen the effects of instant death spells. Even with the sacred sword's perfect courage, the impact of the power of death is still fatal. In this day and age, apart from the dead, who isn't afraid of the power of death? If I knew this earlier, I wouldn't have revived. Wait a moment, the dead. In an instant, a devious idea appears in my list of options. Thus, I chuckle to myself. You have an idea. Of course, this is a tradition. When Calisin noticed that he was unable to lock onto me, who was moving at high speed, he focused his gaze on Diana. The next instant, I directly charged down. Foolish living being, accept the misfortune that is destined to you. As expected, a black ray of light shot towards me. This was the 6-circle undead spell, Physical Exhaustion. Since 2 high-circle instant death spells were unable to kill me, Calisin suspected that we had some sort of treasure that was immune to the effects of death, which was why he chose this spell. Physical Exhaustion inherited the viciousness of undead spells. It would make the target feel as if they had just run 2 marathons while carrying 200 kilograms of rice sacks on their backs. It was especially effective against warriors who relied on their stamina to survive. It was nicknamed the close combat killer, and if the weak were hit by it, it was possible for them to die from exhaustion. Seeing that the ray of light was too fast for me to change directions in time and was about to collide with it, Diana grit her teeth and charged forward. She opened her hands, intending to try her luck with her magic-resistant skin. As for me, get out of my way. I unhesitatingly pushed away the foolish girl and collided with the ray of light myself. Ah! In the midst of the pitch-black light, I couldn't help but scream in agony. The next moment, I violently fell to the ground and rolled around in pain. Even my golden wings started to disintegrate. The living are truly foolish. To actually play such a laughable game of friendship at such a time. What? Sundering evil slash. I fell less than 5 meters away from the Lich. I pretended to roll for another 2 meters before I suddenly leapt up and covered the distance of 3 meters in a single leap. The sacred sword Pale Justice carried a fatal holy light as it slashed down on his head. It was already impossible for him to dodge. Clang. Even though the Lich was forced to his knees by brute force, the sacred sword was actually blocked by a pitch-black short staff. Could the semigod equipment's basic attribute of sturdiness be used in such a manner? The green soulfire in the Lich's eye sockets started burning. Judging from his jaw that kept opening and closing, he was actually beginning to chant a major spell. Descend from the dark core hell. The darned cat's rich knowledge of magic allowed her to instantly recognize that this was a 10th circle myth-ranked forbidden spell. Furthermore, it was an AoE spell that was a combination of the undead and fire elements. As long as he completed this spell, the entire platform would turn into a volcanic crater of the dark core hell. We definitely wouldn't be able to escape, and naturally, he wouldn't be able to escape either. As long as the Lich's phylactery wasn't destroyed, he could revive over and over again. Obviously, after being forced to this point, Callison no longer had any confidence in escaping unscathed. He intended to perish together with us before reviving himself. In reality, the reason why liches were hated by adventurers wasn't just because they were difficult to deal with, but also because of their bad habit of perishing together at the slightest provocation. The sword and the staff clashed. The distance between us was close enough. The skull was filled with malicious intent and even carried a hint of glee. However, since I was already so close to you, you still dared to chant a spell. Aren't you looking down on me? What do you want? Take it. Thus, I unhesitatingly let go of my weapon that was in a stalemate. Under the Lich's confused gaze, I stretched out my hand. Taste my flying dragon cloud-reaching hand. Catcher. A crisp sound echoed. The chanting stopped because I had already removed the Lich's jaw. Aha. Let me give your bones a bath and do some maintenance. Dragon cloud-reaching hand. Dragon cloud-reaching hand. I drew my bow with both hands and fired from both sides. Following that, the ribs were removed, the bones of the hands were removed, and the vertebrae were removed as well. Then, with a violent slap and a shake, the entire skeleton started to fall apart. As an experienced Lich, I couldn't even remember how many times I had removed my own bones to do maintenance over the past few hundred years. Just like how an experienced veteran could close their eyes to dismantle a gun, I could also close my eyes to dismantle a skeleton into its bones before closing my eyes to put it back together. In a short 10 seconds, all that was left of Lich Callison was a skull without a chin. Without any hesitation, I stabbed the holy sword into the soulfire within the skull. As expected, a bizarre soul fluctuation spread and we could faintly hear a scream of agony coming from the depths of the soul. Alright, his soulfire has been burned by the holy flames. Even if he revives, it will take at least a few days. Done and done. Next, we need to find his phylactery before he revives. Indeed, it was done and done. After Callison collapsed, the undead army's weakness of relying too much on the undead lord showed itself once again. A large number of low-level undead who were directly controlled by his undead magic collapsed. A few intelligent undead shouted slogans such as "Ottoman people don't fight Ottoman people," "We were all forced to do this," "Actually, we are all good citizens," "Actually, I am your father," and so on. Of course, the moment they shouted the last one, they were immediately beaten up by the undead. Take them in and ask them where their phylactery is. Forget it, it's impossible for them to know such things. Let's just ask Calisin where his room is. Now is my favorite time to collect the spoils of war, to punish evil. Just as I smiled and put away the Dark King's breath of death, Diana suddenly pounced on me. Are you all right? How did you make that evil magic not work? Ch, what do you mean by not working? I paid a terrible price for it, look. I opened my shirt collar and a black cat with half of her body exposed was currently fighting with my sturdy throat. She bit, gnawed, and scratched, using both her claws and teeth, but she was unable to break through my skin. But, when she saw me looking at her, she unhesitatingly spat at me. Look, a cat shield. Dodging that harmless attack, I pulled her down and knocked her unconscious. Then, I held her in my hand and made a defensive stance, as if she was a shield. How can a kitty block such evil magic? Faced with Diana's question, I pretended to smile mysteriously and didn't reply. Was I supposed to tell her that this darned cat looked cute, but was actually an evil undead creature? Alright, actually, there was no need to use quotation marks on the word evil. If the Queen of Banshees, Heloise, wasn't evil, then everyone in the world would be a saint. Yes, the tradition that I was talking about previously was the tradition of our path to trap mags. Back then, I thought that the already dead Heloise would be an excellent meat shield against an undead mage. Heloise is currently an undead slime. Although she has a portion of the functions of a living being, she is still an undead creation of mine. Using death magic on an undead is no different from throwing a fireball at a fire elemental. Other than making the other party stronger, what other effects does it have? Thus, after using the cat shield to block the body-fading ray formed from death magic, I actually didn't suffer any losses. After a performance, I was able to enter close range for a surprise attack. If a mage were to be caught off guard and allow a close combat mage to get close to him, this was also taking advantage of the opponent's lack of combat experience. In my estimation, the esteemed Calisin must have been casting his spells safely under the protection of many guards for a long period of time. How could he have thought of such a sneaky move? And as expected, I succeeded. Woo-woo, you traitorous disciples only know how to bully me. I knew that none of you had good intentions. I must have been blind to take you in as my disciples back then. Teacher, I finally know how you felt when I stabbed you in the back then. Now, I have also been stabbed in the back, and it was by two of my disciples, one from the front and one from the back. I will never teach any more disciples. Woo-woo. Alright, the only one who was injured was the frightened Harloise, as well as her heart as an educator that had been completely broken. Stop pretending. If you are on good terms with Calisin, why didn't you say it earlier? Which of your disciples haven't been tricked by you before? Most probably, if he knew that it was you, he would be even more vicious in his actions. Also, have you forgotten? The existence of the magic pet contract makes it impossible to hide your true feelings from me. Do you think that such a small matter would make you so desperate? Alright, after I exposed her, the next moment, Diana was shocked to see that the darned cat immediately calmed down. However, her face was still filled with displeasure. Eat the semigod scepter for me. I want to strengthen this physical body of mine. I have had enough of being a pet. Sure, act cute for me. If I am satisfied, I will give it to you. Thus, the little cat smiled mysteriously. Meow, Lordmaster, can you give me that thick, black short stick? He really wants to eat that stick, I beg of you. Meow. Pu. Alright, I underestimated the lower limit of the darned cat. My original intention was just to tease her, to make her do 2 somersaults and bark like a dog. The moment those words came out, not only did I burst into laughter, Diana also looked at me with a strange gaze. This silly girl believed whatever others said. She probably thought that I was a gentleman, pervert, again, on the same level as Bayfong. However, I had originally intended to throw this semigod equipment to her. After all, bringing along a semigod equipment of the undead element in the human world was simply asking for trouble. Furthermore, after Heloise ate it, it would be more convenient for me to use it. That, Can you think about it a little more? No matter how thirsty I am, I won't go into heat on a cat. Just as I explained, Heloise, who was behind me, smiled evilly. After a series of distortions, she turned into a cute golden-haired elf girl. Although she reverted back to her original form in the next second, it was enough to leave a deep impression on the legend-rank knight. Without a doubt, this was the revenge of the cat shield. No wonder it is called the Gentleman Alliance. So you are also a gentleman, pervert. To actually turn your cat into a girl, just how? Alright, she didn't even use honorifics anymore. Looks like her image has been ruined quite badly this time. Actually, it's understandable for men to be gentlemanly. If you really can't stand it, you can actually consider Momo. Although she's always very harsh, she has always been a good girl, and she has always liked you. Forget it. She definitely can't. She definitely can't. Diana's untimely matchmaking reminded me of a few days ago, when we were choosing an Aurora knight. Momo, who is also a silver rank, also came to join in the fun. Initially, with her decent strength, she had a chance of succeeding, but the moment she opened her mouth. Is there anyone who can turn into a cute Shota? It's an 8 or 9-year-old boy, hey. Oh right, I have a portrait of little Luo here. Can you turn it into one? Big sister Shiva, help me turn him into one. Seeing that I blocked the arrow for you just now, it will be enough. In just a moment, one wave is enough. I want to see little Luo, but I can't beat that pervert. Woo woo, Momo's life is so bitter. Looking at Momo who is pestering Shiva on the airship, in the end, Diana sighs helplessly. It is because she is getting weirder and weirder that I want to marry her off as soon as possible. If you can't deal with her yourself, you send her out to harm others. Diana, you have also become bad. However, I still have to thank you for the night attack alarm last night. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. Sigh, actually, it is your fault. She was clearly very normal in the past. How can you blame me for this? It is obviously her. Alright, it is all my fault. At this moment, I can't help but recall that weird title of King of Gentlemen. What does it mean by all gentlemen will take the initiative to join your ranks? I haven't met many normal people along the way. Ding. Congratulations to the host for discovering the hidden effect of the King of Gentlemen. Not only will it make gentlemen voluntarily join your faction, but it will also turn ordinary people into gentlemen. It will turn a little gentleman into a great gentleman into a divine gentleman, and a divine gentleman into the King of Gentlemen. System notification. Look, I gave you the highest gentleman honor achievement right from the start. How considerate of me. Consider it your sister. Do you think that there aren't enough gentlemen? While we are celebrating our victory in the underwater base and worrying about the grey elves that are getting weirder and weirder, in the palace of the Ottoman Empire, His Majesty the Emperor is meeting with an esteemed guest. With your help, what does that 9-headed smelly snake amount to? Inform the ambassadors of the various countries that the enthronement ceremony will be brought forward to coincide with Lord Dragonslayer's great cause. We will be recorded in the annals of history together. Your Majesty praises me too much. I am just an old man who doesn't have enough power. I might be able to chase away the 9-headed dragon emperor, but killing him is basically impossible. The venerable god's mission is for me to not go overboard. Despite having the appearance of a handsome young man, he speaks with the tone of an old man. From his fair skin that is tinged with gold, and the faint halo of light at the back of his head, he isn't a mortal, but Valkyrie, a servant of a true god. After a round of pleasantries, Dasos sends Valkyrie away. His previous arrogance turn into a cautious expression. Lomtu Basra, when his opponent is a dragon, will he show mercy? And not go overboard? That's insane. Sending this bloodthirsty Valkyrie down to the mortal world, is the moon goddess intending to have a decisive battle with Lady Storm? Damn it, get the entire army to make preparations. If things go wrong, things might get out of hand. Then why are you still making use of this opportunity to hold the enthronement ceremony? It's not like you don't know how many ambassadors find excuses to leave every day. If the Ottoman Empire wants to become a superpower, they must form an alliance. Now that we are riding a tiger, it's hard to get off. Since the ending can't get any worse, Why don't we take a gamble? Chapter 108. The undead calamity's weakness of relying too much on the undead at the head level was its weakness. Following the fall of the Lich, Khalisin's undead army also disintegrated. In the eyes of us, who were once undead lords, this meant that the composition of this army was extremely chaotic. The more mature an undead army was, the more mid-tier and high-tier undead there were. The more mid-tier commanders there were, the stronger the low-tier cannon fodder would become and the less afraid of being beheaded. However, after the fall of Emperor Yongye, the Yongye army immediately disintegrated and went to the other extreme. There were too many mid-tier and high-tier undead, to the point that after losing Emperor Yongye, with the allure of the country of the undead and the eternal night scepter, too many experts tried to climb to the top, but ended up falling into internal strife. Speaking of which, that junior Lich is really stupid. To actually chant such a long incantation in front of a melee fighter. Is he tired of living? Was this also taught by you? His combat experience is so lacking. Looks like your teaching standards are getting worse and worse. The darned cat on my shoulder was so angry that her fur was standing on end. If it wasn't for the fact that her teeth were broken when she tried to bite me, she would definitely pounce on me again. I understood her. Usually, she was as thick-skinned as me and didn't care about anything I said. However, as long as her magic standards and teaching standards were questioned, she would definitely jump up in anger. That wasn't taught by me. I wouldn't teach such basic things. It was obviously that idiot who lacked combat experience. I'm not a kindergarten teacher. Why do I have to repeatedly teach such basic things? Yes, the basics. As a weak magic job, keeping a distance from a melee fighter was the most important thing. In a battle between a high-tier mage and a melee fighter, the melee fighter would try his best to close the distance while the mags would use defensive magic to dodge or teleport to widen the distance. The two would cycle back and forth until one side finally revealed an opening. That would be the moment of victory. In the end, the mags would either have enough distance and time to concentrate their firepower on killing the melee fighter, or the melee fighter would exhaust the opponent's defensive magic, escape magic, and control magic and be chopped into pieces by the kitchen team. Truthfully, this was very unfair. Magical classes could make multiple mistakes, but melee classes could lose their lives if they made a single mistake. In most cases, it was true that the melee classes could not catch up to the magical classes no matter how hard they tried, resulting in them being toyed with to death. However, there was no such thing as absolute fairness in this world. Magic classes had extremely high requirements for talent. Among humans, magic classes were less than 1/10 of those of the same tier, and they required a lot of time and wealth to nurture. Hence, it was easier for magic classes to obtain a high status in human society than melee classes. As a court archmage and a prince of the royal family, Khalisin undoubtedly held real power. However, another aspect of his high status was that he lacked the opportunity to practice in actual combat. Whenever he went out, he would always be accompanied by a large number of bodyguards. How could he be allowed to personally fight for his life? Should it be said that he was immature to the point of being naive? This junior of mine is actually chanting an incantation in front of me. Even if my rank is much lower than his, there is no need for him to ignore me like this. Even if I don't forcefully tear him apart, Pale Justice will attack me a few more times and I will be finished sooner or later. I feel that we should expel Khalisin from our school. I have never taught such a shameful disciple. You should just be happy. If it wasn't for the fact that this guy lacks actual combat experience to the point of being ridiculous, with that Saint rank weapon and his strength as a Saint rank Lich, you would definitely not be able to win. Heloise's words were very honest. This really couldn't be blamed on my teacher for not teaching me well. It was obvious that he usually relied on his Saint rank weapon and Saint rank strength to use high circle spells to kill everything. Now that he met an unkillable opponent, he panicked and messed around. If it wasn't for Khalisin being foolish enough, with his legendary fire and Saint rank undead strength and that Saint rank weapon, he would have at least a dozen ways to win. No matter what, he wouldn't have been instantly killed. This fully confirmed the old saying, no matter how good one's martial arts is, if one's brain isn't good, sooner or later one will be smashed by a brick. I nodded my head with a heavy expression, but a smile was already forming on my lips. This junior of mine is simply the captain of a treasure delivery team. The equipment on him is really not bad. I will kindly accept this Saint rank weapon. Dark God's Breath of Death attack power, 1 to 2, Saint rank weapon one-handed scepter, usage requirement, intelligence 15+, high rank necromancer Breath of Death, able to store up to 3/8 circle, legendary rank, death type spells. As long as it is activated, it can be instantly cast. If it is a 9th circle spell, epic rank, it can be cast without using any materials. However, you can only store one 9th circle spell. Domain of Death. With the scepter as the core, there exists an invisible domain of death. In this domain, the effects of death magic will be amplified by 50%, and the success rate of instant death will be increased by 30%. Face of the Dead. The user's intelligence increases by 2 points, physique increases by 2 points, and they are immune to fear and death type abilities. However, their charm will be reduced by 10 points. This attribute can be reduced to a negative number. Dark God's Protection. Summon an invisible shield that absorbs 200 points of magic damage or magic weapon damage. Before the shield is broken, the user will be immune to stun, transformation, and other control type spells. Lasts for 10 seconds. Dark God's Rage, active ability. After using it, the user's next spell will carry an instant death effect, even if it is just an ordinary magic missile. The instant death effect is equivalent to the rank of the spell. Soul Conversion. Extract the soul of the dead and convert it into pure death magic. The ancient undead emperor, the Dark God, once reached the pinnacle of the domain of death. Legend has it that just by breathing, he is able to make the living enter the realm of death. Even though he has already fallen, this semigod equipment still contains a portion of his soul shards. Perhaps, an undead lord can use this to comprehend the mysteries of death and enter the supreme throne of a semigod undead emperor. This is a typical semigod equipment for combat. Not mentioning the mysteries of the undead emperor's soul shards that are able to drive undead lords crazy, it is, after all, a mirage that depends on luck. The 3 instant cast death type spells of Breath of Death are already shocking super killing machines. With this Breath of Death, there is no need to look at other abilities. Who would be able to withstand 3 death type spells that he casually throws out? Furthermore, coupled with the soul conversion ability, he does not need to worry about exhausting his mana. It is no wonder that Calicin's combat experience is lacking. With this semigod equipment, he is probably already used to the exhilaration of killing everything in an instant. Even if he is obstructed for a moment, he can just extract a few more souls and bombard them once more. You said that I am a cannon type, but this junior is obviously a super cannon type. As for that Dark God's Protection, it seems that I have underestimated him. Back then, when he chanted the incantation to perish together with me, he should have been using this shield. For 200 points of damage, I would probably have to slash at least 7 to 8 times. Even if the shield were to break, I would still be able to make a second reaction. However, he did not expect that I am completely different from my previous opponents. When challenging a powerful Lich, I did not use a godly weapon. Instead, I used my bare hands to tear apart his bones. The moment I made a move, he was unable to chant the incantation normally. Naturally, I was defeated. If this toy were to be brought outside, the moment it is revealed, the Holy Church would immediately suppress me. I intended to let Heloise eat it, but devouring a semigod equipment is something that she is unable to do at the moment. She still needs to make many preparations. Thus, I kept it with a face full of joy. Just as my evaluation of Calicin slightly increased due to the fact that the defensive ability did not work as expected, 5 minutes later, this overly high evaluation of him collapsed once more. I really did not teach him. I don't know him. I believe that such a foolish student cannot be explained by the fact that a teacher did not teach him well. This is a congenital type of brain damage that no medicine can cure. This kind of intelligence is comparable to that of a silly girl. How did he advance to saint rank? The moment we walked into Calicin's room in the Mage Tower, we naturally intended to collect the spoils of war. However, just as we started searching, we found a square box under the bed. Opening it, we saw a blue bottle wrapped in velvet. Within the bottle, There was a quietly burning soul fire. If there wasn't a second Lich here, then this toy would definitely be Calicin's phylactery. It was a textbook example of a standard soul bottle. Furthermore, he was afraid of losing it, so he kept it in a box. To be able to explain the term phylactery to such an extent, it was truly a miracle. While other liches would repeatedly disguise their phylactery, fearing that it would be discovered by others, this phylactery, which was open and undisguised, actually frightened us. Hey, Heloise, if you were to transform into a Lich here, how would you create a phylactery? Just find a random item and after transforming it, throw it into the water. I guarantee that no one will be able to find it. I would place it in an ordinary brick and then place the brick on the main road here. This way, passers-by would never know that a Lich's phylactery is right beneath their feet. The two of us looked at each other and saw the mirth in each other's eyes. Sigh, how unfortunate. We should have added an intelligence test to the entrance exam. Don't tell others that I'm his senior. We can't afford to lose face like this. The two of them sighed together. Finally, someone couldn't bear to listen to such sarcasm. Bastard Dasos, do you think that you can insult me as you please just because I've lost? No matter what, I'm still an Ottoman prince. Senior, do you know who my teacher is? Shake it, I'm so dizzy, stop shaking it. One of the reasons why the textbook soul bottle was abandoned by most liches was because the souls contained in the bottle were far too weak. With just a slight shake, Calicin unhesitatingly surrendered. This technique is so familiar. Yep, I learned it from you, silly cat. Alright, ignoring the silly cat who was going all out to bite me again, I turned my attention to Calicin's phylactery who fell silent again. Alright, let me reintroduce myself. Why am I your senior? Yep, I should also be the oldest senior to have survived until now. I am Roland Mist and this silly cat is our teacher, Heloise. How is this possible? Calicin was unable to remain silent anymore. Not only did she expose his teacher, how did the fearsome banshee queen turn into a soft little kitten? However, that black cat glared at her in annoyance. A ghost-like figure flashed behind its back and disappeared. That familiar soul ripple was the best calling card for her. How have you been? By the way, don't tell others that you are my disciple, it's too embarrassing. By the way, Harlock, Calicin's pseudonym, I'm no longer angry after seeing you like this. Let's forget about our past grudges. Of course, you can also refuse. We'll settle our scores again. The soul fire surged in the bottle. If the bottle could nod freely, it would have already become a roly-poly toy. Teacher Heloise, you're speaking as if I'm the one who has wronged you. It's obvious that we were all tricked by you. If you want revenge, we should be the ones looking for you. Alright, I won't say any more. Noticing that the black cat was baring its fangs, Calicin recalled the cat's petty and calculative personality, and the fact that he had fallen into its hands. Wait, the oldest senior brother? Rumor had it that he was also Heloise's disciple. Rumor had it that he was indeed from the Mist Kingdom. Forever and ever, Emperor Yungia. Alright, the reverberation of the soul reverberated in the room, revealing the fear and shock contained within. A person's name was like the shadow of a tree. As the only undead emperor in the modern era, as the creator of the strongest undead calamity in the modern era, Yungia, Emperor Yungia was an existence that all undead mags couldn't avoid. He was an unsurpassable monument, as well as an existence that people feared. It's me. You don't have to be so surprised. You are now an undying existence. Is it that surprising that I didn't die? I had expected him to throw away his identity. The world of the undead was actually much simpler than that of the living. It was common for the strong to be respected. With the golden name of Emperor Yungia, the reality of his failure, and the phylactery in my hands, I didn't think that he would be able to play any tricks. I won't say too much nonsense. You just have to listen to me from now on. We are all in the same profession, and there are many ways to torture the soul. If you want to play any tricks, go ahead. But if the tricks you play are too indecent, too low class that I can't bear to watch, then I won't say much about what will happen to you. Don't need to say much equals think about it yourself equals scare yourself. There was no limit to the imagination of an intelligent being. The more one was used to being cruel to others, the easier it was for them to think of even crueler ways to torture themselves. This method of inducing fear had always been effective, especially when the other party was an undead mage who specialized in torturing souls. If Callison was really a martyr who would rather die than submit, he wouldn't have turned himself into a Lich. Seeing that even the powerful Heloise was turned into a pet, what else could he possibly resist? And so, the next period of time was when I told the Lich to obediently do as I said. Let's do it this way. Since I can see that you have a grudge against Dasos, when he opens the door, bring your army to fight against him. Of course, you'll lose in the end, but remember to self-destruct in a spectacular manner. Right, you still have to leave behind the information on the airships, don't blow them up together. I didn't think that we would be able to hide it from Dasos after we developed an air fleet, but it was entirely possible to create a bit of chaos. The traces of the undead's existence were already impossible to hide, and the traces of the battle that had just occurred were even more obvious. In order to hide the traces of the battle, the easiest way would be to start a new battle. Of course, Heaven's Net has long arms, but nothing escapes. There were some things that should not be done. Once done, there would be traces that would eventually be exposed. For Donglan, who lacked everything, just the set of rare alloy equipment of the White Wolf Guard was a priceless treasure. It was impossible for us to let go of the spoils of war that we had collected here. The series of arrangements that we made next could only delay the time for us to be exposed. After the Ottoman Empire finishes dealing with the Sea Folk, the time for the war between the various countries in the War Vulture would also come. After the war, the Underground Coalition Army and the Undead Calamity would also arrive. As long as we get through the current trouble, I don't believe that he would still have the spare time to look for trouble with the Far North State. Moreover, by that time, when Donglan becomes stronger, it's still unknown who would be looking for trouble with whom. That's right, the 7 countries of the Far North wouldn't be so content with their lot. Since they intend to settle down in Donglan, they should also be prepared to deal with the war. Of course, this is the territory of the Lich Calishin after all. If we want to clean up the place quickly, it's best to get the other party's help. The most important thing at the moment is to make him obedient. If we want him to work in peace, we can't not give him a carrot after slapping him. I'm not unreasonable. If you listen to me, I'll give you whatever you want, whether it's the secrets of magic, divine weapons, or treasures, whatever you want. You should have heard that I am not a stingy person and my reputation has always been good. The promise of Emperor Yongye is very precious. Hearing my words, the soul fire in the bottle suddenly stagnates, then it starts to burn crazily again. Pardon me for being presumptuous, but you and Lord Teacher are like this now? Could it be that you too have come back to life? There is nothing to hide about this, so I directly nod my head. Then do you too have the sense of touch? Do you have the desire for a physical body? I nod my head again. Although Heloise is still a half undead, her abilities are no different from a living person. Heloise's physical body was created by me. You should know my ability in this aspect. Why? Do you want me to help you create a physical body? Of course. I have already had enough of the days of being an undead. Indeed, I don't have hunger or thirst, but I also don't have the desire to enjoy delicacies. Indeed, I don't have the instinctive desire, but it still makes my life worse than death. Lord, I beg of you, as long as you allow me to regain the sense of touch and desire of a physical body, I am willing to pay any price. Sure, it is just the body of a man. It is simple, but let me make it clear first. Even if you are no different from a normal person in all aspects, you are still an undying undead on the inside, unable to leave behind any descendants. I am able to regain the sense of touch and desire, but crossing the boundary between life and death isn't something that the current me can do. It is enough for me to regain desire, it is enough for me to regain desire. I smile gleefully. I am not afraid of you asking for too much, I am only afraid that you don't have any desires. Since you are begging me, naturally, it is easier for me to control you. All right, leave it to me. When the time comes, give me a portrait of your past and I guarantee that I will restore it to the exact same state. That. Do you know how to make a female's body? At that moment, my feet slip and my hand loosens, almost dropping the phylactery on the floor. Based on my many years of experience of being scammed, I can already guess what is going to happen next. That, cute boys, that is a small hobby of nobles. I believe that my lord will be able to understand. Although it was not bad in the past, if there is a chance, I still want to change it up. As though he is frightened by my steely expression, the next instant, Callison screams out his desire with all his might. No, I will be honest with my lord. This is my life's pursuit, and also the reason why I study necromancy. Shut up, you gay. I suppress the urge to smash the bottle and ignore the silly cat who is rolling around in laughter. It is obvious that she already knows that I don't want to interact with such a pervert. The next moment, I turn around and leave. My lord, don't go, I beg of you, this is the deepest desire of a fool who was born with the wrong body. Pooey. I already have enough gentlemen by my side, and this kind of gay pervert is challenging my limits and tolerance as a man. Thus, I don't stop walking. My lord, have you heard of the Cassams? Of course I have. The flagship of the future Ottoman air fleet, the unsinkable Cassams. That is a super battleship that will be known by everyone in the future. Of course I have heard of it, but if it is completed now, can't you tell? Besides, that is the flagship of the air fleet, it is not that easy to make. Of course it is not completed yet, but its prototype, the Prince Callison that I secretly built, is almost completed. My lord, as long as you fulfill my long-cherished wish, he is yours. Chapter 109. Even though I couldn't resist the temptation of a powerful warship in the end and agreed to this perverted condition, I still drew a clear line between him and me. After I'm done with this fellow, I'll tie him to a 1,000-kilogram boulder and throw him into the river. No, I'll feed him to Bayfoam. No, if Bayfoam were to be influenced by him and gain new attributes, that would be too scary. Let's call it sinking into the river. Those gentlemen are already troublesome enough to deal with, I definitely can't allow them to mix together. I was disgusted. After all, I was still a normal person. Definitely a normal person. I wasn't some king of gentlemen. Darned Ottoman Empire, they might as well change their name to Ottoman Empire. A man who likes women and a man who thinks that he should be a woman. I think you two uncle and nephew make a perfect pair. However, with Calishin's full cooperation, the goal of taking over the base was indeed much faster. When I saw the super warship in the dock of the Mage Tower, even I pinched the darned cat's tail. From her screams and sharp claws, I could confirm that I wasn't dreaming. Prince Calishin, formerly known as Ottoman Warrior, is the prototype of the super warship, Cassams, but in reality, its performance far surpasses that of its sibling warship. Everyone knows that, just like the Roland II, whose performance far surpasses that of its peers, the prototype warship is built with money to prove the validity of the theory. It is understandable that Prince Calishin's performance is above that of Cassam's. Prince Calishin, a super-heavy warship, 243 meters in length and 40 meters in width. It has 9 heavy cannons charged with magic crystals, 7 medium mage towers, 1 super mage tower, 32 medium to small cannons, and the main cannon at the head of the warship has a maximum range of 30 kilometers. It has a built-in hangar that can store 3 Vulture assault ships. This warship can be used both in the water and in the air. It has a standard displacement of 65,000 tons after entering the water. It takes close to 10 minutes to float and its maximum speed in the air is 120 kilometers per hour. As a flying unit, it isn't too fast. However, considering the massive size of the warship, I feel that the speed of this thing is already ridiculous. As the number 1 warship of the Ottoman air fleet, due to the disregard of cost, this super warship far surpasses Cassam's in terms of specifications, speed, and firepower. In the official records of the Ottoman Empire, due to a sudden explosion in the rear cabin during an experiment, it had sunk into the deep sea. Although the sinking and explosion were real, the crew members didn't die. Their families were well taken care of by Calishin. After a year and a half, the reactivated Prince Calishin entered the underwater base that was under the complete control of Calishin. It became his trump card in the fight for the throne. This original flagship was also quietly waiting for the day when it was renamed to Emperor Calishin. Furthermore, in order to better launch a surprise attack on the capital, when the 8 mage towers on the ship are activated, Not only will they be able to provide an outstanding magic shield, the King Karlahin will also be able to enter a state of stealth. The entire warship is the culmination of the accumulation of the Ottoman Empire for hundreds of years. However, under the selfish desires of a certain person, it became a tool to fight for the throne. When Kalashin realized that the underwater base was isolated from the outside world, he acutely guessed that the day the door opens would be the day he breaks off with his nephew. In order to prepare for that day, after completing the test of the floating engine on the Vulture, he invested more than 90% of the resources and manpower into this huge warship. With the laborious, construction workers, and engineers who worked tirelessly, the completion rate of Prince Kalashin has already exceeded 95%. As for the ship that was originally given the highest priority, Kassam's, its completion rate is only slightly more than half. In history, when the dimensional door was opened more than 10 years later, Darsos was faced with a complete fleet. If it wasn't for the fact that his country was on the brink of destruction, and that the uncle and nephew were forced to reach a temporary truce, and that his reputation as the king of winter wolves was already known throughout the entire continent, Darsos would have been kicked off his throne. But now, this super warship that wasn't recorded in the official records has undoubtedly become a bargain for me. Walking from the Mage Tower to the basement, with Kalashin's help, the traps didn't obstruct us at all. Beside this super warship, there are many hardworking undead laborers and ace engineers. The weaker one is, the lower the chances of them retaining their intelligence after turning into an undead. In order to maintain their knowledge and intelligence, these ace engineers, who were known as the national treasures of the Ottoman Empire, as well as the experts and scholars of various fields, are still alive. Even though the remaining rations have been provided to them, this place isn't just isolated from the outside world for a day or two. They aren't even given a piece of biscuit every day and they have to work hard. The result is that their emaciated appearance makes one think that they are skeleton soldiers. From a certain perspective, our ambush has saved them from the brink of death. First, they were forcefully moved here, and their loved ones were turned into undead engineers right in front of them. Their hatred towards the Ottoman Empire, Darsos, and Kalashin was unbelievably smooth just by saying that I am a citizen of the Donglan Principality. Of course, those who have survived until now are all intelligent people. They know how to make the right choice in order to continue living. It'll be completed by next month, and it'll barely be ready to set sail in 2 weeks. Looking at the ace engineer and grand scholar who were overjoyed to receive the jerky I handed over, I broke out in a cold sweat when I heard this news. If we had arrived a month later, we probably wouldn't have had any chance of victory at all. Prioritize the construction of the Mage Tower. If necessary, we can directly dismantle the Mage Tower's components. What we need the most right now is its stealth and ambushing abilities. I was filled with joy as I gave the new construction order. Obtaining this Mage Tower doubtlessly gave me much more hope and confidence in my future plans. Prince Kalashin. When I thought about how this was the name of a certain gay man, and how I might end up living in this ship named after a gay man, I unhesitatingly made changing the name of the ship the most important matter before considering anything else. I have always been a troublemaker when it comes to naming things. Just as I hesitantly called out the name Roland, the silly cat's faint voice said, "Have you forgotten about the Roland Titan? Do you intend to have a transformation or a full series of Roland?" This immediately made me give up on this idea. Then, I recalled the name of Law and Justice, so I suggested naming this ship Absolute Justice. However, the silly cat's "Is it the incurable disease?" defeated me yet again. Love and courage? Little friend, how old are you today? Do you intend to make everyone laugh their heads off? The Angry Birds. I feel like I'll crash into a house if I don't crash into a pig's head. Think of something else. The Grapes of Wrath. I feel like I'll be unlucky all the way. I'll meet with an economic crisis and then go bankrupt. The Angry Banana. I'm not an angry squirrel. Think about it seriously. Don't think about small animals or fruits. Do you dare to think of a mighty and domineering name? The Archangel. Although the Archangel is indeed powerful, I always feel like it's an inauspicious name. Not only that, it's also super good at making its teammates suffer. The Snow Wind. Don't say any more. It's even more inauspicious. I can feel chills running down my spine. The Danyang. Is there a difference from the one above? Can you not use such an inauspicious name? The Titanic. Are you unhappy if the ship doesn't sink? Do you have such a deep hatred for this ship? Can't you come up with a celebratory name? Assemble, gentlemen. Sure, I have no objections. But do your parents know that you're courting death? Do you think that you don't have enough gentlemen under you? The Wyvern. I know of more than 20 ships with this name. Are you sure you want to add a 3-digit identification code at the end? The Eliza, White, Queen. All right, a certain demon marquise crossed dimensions to angrily declare her existence. Rejected. You might as well call it the Primal Banshee Emperor. All right, silly cat, your ultimate motive has been revealed. It feels like using a name that is filled with the ultimate evil boss will only result in self-destruction. It was an endless series of suggestions and rejections. It was a heartbreaking self-test. Once again, I confirmed that naming is indeed a troublesome matter. I thought of more than 20 names in a row, but all of them were rejected. Mysterious voice, are you sure you're not asking for it? The Borealis. Although it feels like it's reflecting something, since it hasn't sunk yet, I'll just make do with it. The Borealis is a natural phenomenon unique to the northern lands. From a certain perspective, this name represents the desire for the mist country to break the ice and rise again. 2 more weeks. Can't it be faster? The conclusion I got was depressing. 2 weeks later, it would barely be able to start up, but it would only be able to fly. Most of the cannons on the ship would be unusable. These 2 weeks were the best-case scenario. Looking at the current situation, there was an 80% chance that it would be delayed. Due to the damage caused to the energy pool by the previous attack and my intention to let the survivors who had managed to survive with great difficulty take a break and eat some good food to recover, the possibility of the delay was even higher. However, as long as it could be driven out, it would be able to fly while completing the remaining work. This was a piece of good news. Without a doubt, in the current situation where the Seafolk and the Ottoman Empire were at a stalemate, and an all-out war could break out at any moment, this underwater base was the safest. Very quickly, I made a decision. Since the Ottoman Emperor has approved of our request to leave in the contract, it is about time for the envoy group from the Donglan Principality to return to the northern lands. After I returned to the surface, I would arrange for the convoy to return to the northern lands. At the very least, on the surface, I couldn't allow the envoy group to remain in this dangerous city. Renee, follow this name list and look for the people in the city. Those whose names are underlined in red must be invited, even if you have to resort to violence or kidnapping. Those whose names are in blue must be invited, but if you can't, don't force yourself. Those whose names are in purple must not resort to violence, otherwise, you will become a troublesome target. Since we were fated to offend the Ottoman Empire, it didn't matter if we offended them a little more. Since we had already started to poach them, we might as well poach more of them. With these historical figures in our hands, regardless of whether it was us, the Donglan Principality, or the Ottoman Empire, the future would be different. After we find them, get them to bring their families here. Remember, tell them that this city is in danger and that we are saving them. This is the truth. So just go ahead and do it. With the underwater base and the Borealis in our hands, it was doubtlessly the first ray of hope in this chaotic situation. With this base that we could attack and defend at will, our safety was truly guaranteed. However, my good mood only lasted until we returned to the Church of Law, inviting me to participate in the ascension ceremony that will be held in advance. Am I crazy, or is Dasos crazy? As the Seafolk's invasion progressed, and as the 3 main fleets were destroyed one by one, the Ottoman Empire gradually lost control of the rivers and the coastline. All the cities along the coast were being attacked by the Seafolk. The Empire's defense forces were all mobilized, and the number of cities that had been massacred by the Piranha tribe had already exceeded 2 digits. While the capital was still maintaining a strange balance, the battles below were already a complete mess. Faced with the seemingly endless number of Seafolk, the Ottoman Empire's not-so-powerful forces on the water began to cower. On the river that led to Kajisi City, the defending fleets of the humans were either completely annihilated or returned to the port of the city to seek help from the local defenders. Over 100 tribes were gathering and trekking. Under the guidance of the storm priests who wore the storm sacred emblem, they had already completed the transition from mercenaries to regular soldiers. Among them, there were ugly and short fishmen, beautiful and pure mermaids, tall and sturdy sea giants, but most of them were the half-human, half-fish Naga seafolk and various water elementals. The simple training and grouping had already ended, and the seafolk were ready for battle. With the storm priests as the core, under the guidance of the true god Lady Storm, after a long trek, they saw their destination. The capital, the new capital, the new capital that belongs to us. That was what they said.